Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. A big, massive warm welcome to this Freaky Friday right here on Truth Frequency Radio Network. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined tonight by the United Nations of Woo. That's right, folks, we've got a right global panel here tonight. Obviously, I'm in Glasgow. We've got Johnny Whistles in Glasgow, Marty coming from down south in England. Then we go over the pond to the one and only J.D. Moore of the Red Pill Reports. And a very special guest tonight is Alex, all the way from the Ukraine. Listen, folks, you might as well buckle up, grab your tin foil, because this is going to be a journey into the woo. So let me have a quick chat with these fine guys, these fellow travellers of the woo. Marty, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, thanks, Kev. Good to be here, and I'm just glad it's Friday, to be honest.
I know, tell me about it, man. I aim for Fridays all the time, and then at the weekend, I can catch up on all my programming and the agendas and the TV shows.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent stuff. So we're also joined tonight by the one and only, the Whistler. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fine and dandy, Kev, and thankfully joined by a plethora of fantastic guests.
Well, I've got a bit of woo before we even get to the other guests. Marty, you were telling me that the big man's got a doppelganger. Somebody's stolen his name. He's not the only whistler.
No, well, I actually met another whistler today, world-famous whistler David Morris. He's been on TV, Guinness Book of Records, all those sorts of things. Anyway, long story short, I just did a delivery to somebody's house, didn't know where I was going, and long and behold, this guy was the whistler with all the memorabilia and pictures everywhere. I was dying to say to him, you know, I've got a friend called the Whistler too, but it didn't happen.
What did I say? I'll fight him.
Johnny, that must really irk you, man.
No way, there's only one Whistler, Kev. There's only one. Thanks, Oblivion. You just said it there in the chat.
Before we get back to Marty, who'll do the honours in the chat, let's bring into the mix here Mr. J.D. Moore. Fantastic show today, man. And it's going to be another brilliant 3 hours here on the Freaky Friday.
It always is a brilliant 3 hours on the Freaky Friday, man. I love hanging out with you guys. This is like the highlight of my week, Kevin.
It definitely is, and we've got so much woo to get into tonight. But before we get there, our special guest all the way from Eastern Europe is the one and only Alex. Your first Freaky Friday, man. How are you doing?
Hi, guys. Freaky Friday. Finally, I've made it. Woo! It's an honor, guys. Thank you.
Oh, listen to that. Alex is getting into the spirit right away, folks. And Marty, let's give the chat room a shout out. If I can get my words out tonight, man.
Yeah, it's all good, Kev. Well, there's 49 in the chat room so far. 50 keeps going up over at truthfrequencyradio.com. Everyone on listening on the streams, big shout out to you guys too. Come and join the chat, get involved. We're here for 3 hours tonight. 51. Shout out to Bag of Chips, Catalyze This, DP, Dr. Harry Wiener, El Dumio, Han Solo, Irish Pete, Lady Totty, Meat Dog, Obsidian, Otto. Oh yeah, he nearly got me with that one. Paisley Buddy, Phil, Pooh Brain, PRC News, Robbie DMC, Shark, Summer, Tuit, Oblivion Sector, Do You Want to Know, Smug, Who, Tempest, Mystical Fairy, JD, The Tavi, Scottish John, Matt D, Dr. Blues, Cave Lady, Time Lord, Choice Bro, Agent Smithy, Art Gloss, Victory Rose twice, welcome to you, Harpic, Stucci, London Lads, Rebecca Roth, how you doing? Stan Tall, Doc, Hellward, Transpersonals, Angel Whispers, Quantum Bad Johnny, Kev, and Tinfoil Hatters were right. Well, we'll see you tonight.
Holy moly, Rebecca Roth in the chat room. Oh, best behaviour tonight, JD. And I'm sure we've got plenty woo to entertain her, don't we?
I will mind my P's and Q's, my friend. I will be on the straight and narrow.
Definitely. And it's you I'm coming to first, because an interesting story that you've been covering and highlighting is these strange mystery lights, JD, coming out of San Diego. What is going on?
You tell me what's going on, man. I just showed this video to you guys in the chat. I'm going to drop another link in the chat right now so you guys can check this out at home. But I'll tell you what, brother, this was reported actually on Tuesday, and that's when I caught it. It was a bunch of people calling from downtown San Diego. I mean, we're talking Coronado Bridge area, super duper heavy congestion area. And there's these lights in the sky, and I don't have any other way to describe them other than strange. I mean, to me, it almost looks like the outline of the Millennium Falcon if you were to put lights around it and then put it up stationary in the sky, but all kinds of different colors, flashing lights, oranges and reds and yellows and blues, and it's like it's stationary and it's big. It looks big anyways, and I don't know what to tell you about it, man, but what was weird to me was that I first saw it on the news. You know, it was a news film crew that went out and actually filmed this thing. It wasn't some Yahoo who, was the guy that called the news, said, I saw these lights in the sky. So the film quality is really good, and it's really unusual to me that a news agency, I think it was NBC7 there in San Diego, would actually put something like that out for public consumption with no explanation, and they really put it out with no explanation, saying, we called the military and they have yet to get back to us. I mean, they spoon-fed the mystery right into it, but I got to be honest, the lights are bizarre. And somebody's telling me it's a science project, not a starship. And it could be that, can you put a bunch of balloons together and lights and put them up there, but it looks too stationary to me, man. I don't know.
And I live in the woo, Marty, so I'm thinking motherships, I'm thinking Project Bluebeam. And of course, the media, they only ever put out what they're told. But you came up with a really good kind of theory beforehand that would explain it as well. Do you want to tell the listeners about that?
Well, it's just complete speculation, really, but from looking at the video that JD shared, it looks to me as if it's a skyscraper in the background, but because it's quite foggy and possibly the rest of the building is in darkness, apart from the top section there, that's kind of what it looks like. It looks like you can see the flash, which sometimes you have on the top of these buildings that just goes off every now and again. But again, I'm not saying that's what it is.
Well, let's go down that train of thought, though, and say that is what it is. First of all, I would question the fact that that brings me right back to the media, because the media should have their bearings in the city, right? If this is an NBC crew that's actually out filming, they should know where they're at and what they're filming. So if they put that out then under the blanket of mystery, knowing full well that it's going to, stoke the fire of the woo, and why that's the bigger question here. It isn't just what's in the sky. It's why did they put it out on the news, man? That's weird to me.
Because they're trying to copy the Freaky Friday format because they know it's so successful. And
That's
Marty,
true.
There's so many explanations for this. We're certainly seeing a lot of anomalies right now. But anything to add to that, man?
Well, just to back up JD, really, that there does seem to be quite a few reports coming out over the last week from the media. One in particular was coming from the Bronx, New York, and this was saying that several residents of Hunts Point area and the Bronx reported spotting UFOs last Saturday night. Many of them called 911, this, that and the other, but when you actually go and look at the picture, it's just a lens flare and there's just no credibility whatsoever. But you do find a lot of media places now are running with these stories. I think the genuine ones, the hidden tech, the possible motherships that we do see, they just keep them out of the way. They don't even make the media.
Can I offer an alternative explanation for these lights in San Diego?
Oh, yes.
All right, and I suggested this I showed my friends, at the Red Pill, Robert and Jeff, this video earlier, and Jeff had a really unique idea. He thought he kind of looked at that thing and he said, that looks like a constellation, and it looks like a constellation in a picture that I've seen like in the Hubble pictures before, right? So let's just say, since we're in the woo because it's Friday, that these guys have got some kind of warp drive system that punches a hole in space and, creates a wormhole, folds the space and brings that here. What if that punched a big hole and they took off out of it, and what we could see was just for the meantime, while that hole was dissipating, we could see through it, and we were actually looking at wherever they went.
Holy moly, there's one to think about. Johnny whistles. I'm away to scratch my head and have a think about that.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it's an amazing video, to be honest with you. I don't know, it just looks too stationary. I don't know if it's a building or whatever, but I'll post this in the chat because this was another one that was doing the rounds.
And that's why I was going to come to you, Johnny, because it's not just this one incident and this one in the Bronx that Marty's been talking about. You've got one from elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, this is from China, Kev. And when you look at this, it's kind of a weird because it's like spotlights on the clouds, but the spotlights look as if they're coming from above the clouds.
And that's exactly the first impression I got from it. And again, JD, I'll come to you first. I was thinking Project Bluebeam.
I was too, man. That's what the whole thing looks like. These are all beta tests for some sort of top-down projection, and because it's especially on the clouds, man, it seems really clear that whatever the light source is in China is not being projected from below. It has, it's got that feel to it that it's coming from above the clouds. So you got to wonder, man, is it the Project Bluebeam, or is that whole thing a cover for something else? I don't know, man. But it's another goofy situation for sure there in China.
And I was watching or listening to Stan Dale the other day on a show, and he was explaining how they've got these space-based weapons with lasers, masers, that's the microwave version. And it's not exactly going to be any stretch of the imagination to believe that they've got some kind of projection going on from space. Now, Marty, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to check out the China video. What do you think of that one, if you have?
Yeah, that is quite strange. Definitely looks like when you see spotlights from afar being shined in the clouds. But like Johnny says, it seems to be coming from the other way. Very strange indeed. And that's what I'm saying. It seems to be a lot of these clips that really stay off the mainstream's radar. They seem to have more credibility and look like something unexplainable rather than some of these ones that seem to hit the media, like the Bronx one. And I'm sure we can point out several ones that have made the media, and it turns out to be some guy who's edited it in there.
Well, since we're talking about lights in the sky, Kev, I was telling you the other day there about the 25th of April, over Northern Ireland, there was a meteor. Now, this thing exploded in the sky really high up, but they said if it was anything like the one in Chelyabinsk, I think it's called, then it would have probably wiped out Northern Ireland, because it said it exploded with the power of an atomic bomb.
So how come that wasn't major news at the time? Because this is certainly the first I heard of it when you told me, John.
Yeah, I know, and the thing is, it says that the meteorite, that the flash was that bright, it was seen in southern parts of England as well. So amazed me how it was not in any newspapers or on the TV, Kev.
And Alex, you're over in Eastern Europe. That's closer to the scene of Chelyabinsk, or I'm sorry for actually murdering the pronunciation there. But your thoughts on lights in the sky and meteors and stuff like that, Alex? What's it like over there?
Some people report it, but I haven't seen anything personally. But judging by the video, if I was the one who was filming it, surely I would film a bit more of it and, just to see what happens in the end, if it's going to disappear or not. But I think it's just they're playing with our minds, to be honest.
Definitely, that could be the case. And, we do have the phones open tonight, guys. We've got a caller on the line. Will we see if they're just listening in or wanting to talk to us, guys?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's go for it. They're coming in from Level Cross.
Hey,
hello. Jeff. Hey there, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm going to throw this out there and then just get off the phone and let you guys discuss it. But I wanted to get in before the May 7th, I believe, episode next week with the 100-year anniversary of the Lusitania coming up. There's a Jewish holiday, I think you would call it that. It's Lag B'Omer, or I'm not going to pronounce that right, but basically it is the 33rd day in the counting of the days of Omer, and it's also recognized as a day of the celebration of death. But I thought I would just drop that in. And
we had a guest, didn't we, Kev, one time, who covered the Lusitania? Forgive me, because I forgot who it was.
No, you're quite right, Marty. And JD's got him coming up on the anniversary, I believe, and that's James Perloff.
James Perloff. He's actually going to be on the 6th, on the day before. We couldn't book him for the 7th because he's obviously going to be very popular that day. But that's a story that needs to be told, so yeah, we're going to do it again.
Yeah, so...
Wow.
Yeah, I tried to call in last time he was on the show, but I couldn't get through. But I definitely wanted to get that get that to you guys so you could drop that in for him and see what his thoughts might be.
Can you spell that name of the holiday? I know you can't pronounce it, but could you spell it?
Yeah, I think it's LAGB, and I might even be saying it wrong. I'm going off memory, and it's been about a year since I read up on it. But basically, if you look up the counting of the days of Omer, I think it's O-M-E-R, O-M-A-R.
Okay.
It's the 33rd day for Kev. Also, but the day.
Yeah, it's
celebration of death.
L-A-G space B-A-O-M-E-R, so it's Lag Ba Omer.
Oh, okay.
It's the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. So very, very interesting connection there, Carla.
Very, yeah.
I tell you, I've got a bit of woo to tie on to that, talking of Jewish dates out there. And one date that has been kind of talked about a lot, really, is September. We've had Anthony Patch on. He's been talking about September. I know Rebecca Roth out there in the chat. She too is talking about September. But check this one out, guys. On September the 23rd, 2015, that's going to be the Day of Atonement. Now, this is the Jewish year, if you actually take it from the Jewish calendar, of 5,776. Now, what makes this a special Jubilee year, which comes along every 7 years, is the fact that this is the 70th Jubilee since the Israelites actually entered the Holy Land, and the 40th Jubilee since Jesus ascended to heaven. And then on the actual 15th, just before we have that coming up, will be the 70th UN Assembly. And then also on the 23rd, and this is where we can add a bit of woo in here, because we've got blood moons and everything else around that time, the Pope. Yes, that's right. The Black Pope himself. He is going to be going to the White House and spending the day there. So I think September is going to be a highly interesting month, especially when we throw into the mix. That's probably when we're going to see the highest collisions at CERN. Thoughts on that one, guys?
So much around that date, it's a number of things could play out there, and I'm quite open-minded to it all.
I got to add it in a real way too, just on a non-woo level in the economic world. There's some pretty significant changes that are going to happen in September. The expansion of the SDR basket is going to happen, so the renminbi, which is the Chinese currency, is going to get added to that, and gold is also going to get added to that. We're probably going to move to something is going to happen, and they usually don't do that in September. They usually wait to the first of the year to do that, and they've already announced that they're going to be, preemptively doing that in September. So I'd be definitely on the lookout for everything is coming to a head in September for some reason.
And another person who pointed to September many, many, many moons ago was Isaac Newton. Now, he was actually trying to decode the Bible and work out when the end days will come. And he said, the September the 23rd, 2015, he was pointing to this very time. So it's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And guess what, guys? We have got another caller on the line. So we're going to go to George. Are you out there?
North Carolina.
Well, hey, gang. This is Francis.
Definitely
George's
not a
other
George.
half.
Definitely not a George, Francis. It's lovely to speak to you. Welcome to Freaky Friday.
Well, that was kind of you, and likewise. Let's see how woo you can get me. Otherwise, we'll see what happens. There's so many different places to start at. It's ridiculous. I do know that when I had seen the picture of the lights and all that in the sky, it's like, okay, come on. They're going to do better than that. So, and also regarding the scenario with the magnetic field of the Earth and all that, getting fluky to the point that they had the earthquake over in, where was that? They had the quaking going on.
We've had one in
Peru.
Nepal, and we've had a couple also down in Papua New Guinea. And then there seems to be a whole heap of earth changes going on right now, Fran.
Well, that's true, but you know something? I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, one, you had the CERN fiasco going on, and the fact that, well, when you start messing with the electromagnetic field of the Earth, it's going to have a canary. Basically, I look at the CERN situation as they're basically doing the Tower of Babel all over again.
It certainly does seem like that. And look what happened the last time they tried doing something like that. It kind of went horribly wrong. And you know, when it comes to CERN, we had two theoretical scientists a few years back actually saying that they thought there might be some ripple in time or some kind of quirk that would actually prevent the machine from ever firing up on full power because of the destructiveness that they predicted it held. So guys, CERN, earthquakes, what do we think?
I think there's got to be some sort of connection, Kev, because it just seems to be far too many, and even the volcanoes, they're popping up all over the place, and even places that they shouldn't be. So I think there really has got to be something.
Well, aside from CERN pumping out this absolutely huge 100,000 times the power of the Earth's magnetic field, JD, there could be something else, couldn't there?
I think there might be something else. You know, I was thinking about the Tower of Babel the other day, and, you know, what was the ultimate effect was that all the languages became diverse, right? They basically spread everyone, and the languages became diverse. And I was reading the other day, and I know we're kind of in a different corner here, about Nibiru and some of the ideas about it coming through and kind of messing with the magnetism of the world, or potentially doing some kind of like full-on magnetic mind wipe for everybody. And I was thinking, you know, if that had happened before, if we'd already been spread out as a population across the planet, even if we had one unified language, and then something happened where everybody forgot their memory or forgot, you know, how to communicate, we would eventually all have different languages, even if they were kind of similar, because you've got geographical areas that run into, you know, one another. But I don't know. I was just thinking about what other things out there that we might be seeing today might relate to the Tower of Babel and end up kind of, you know, with us in that same boat. And this Nibiru thing's always kind of in the back of my mind anyway.
Fellas, interesting that JD mentioned that, because when you talk about doing a mental mind wipe, the first thing that came to mind is according to the films Men in Black, with their little memory messer upper, what you call neuralizer.
That's right. Yeah. And I think they're working on that right now. We've got some other articles to talk about later on in the Woo that I think are, I mean, we're coming to a head here, people. I don't know how else to say it. The technology is there.
Since he's not here, I'll say it, JD. In the times of Noah.
I think what it comes down to is that folks need to learn how to protect their brain waves so that they can keep it shielded from such an unsought attack like that.
Now, wait, Fran, are you actually suggesting a tinfoil hat then? Yes. Or what are we talking about?
Why not?
Well, I don't want my head to be cooked like a baked potato. So there's got to be, it's 2015. There's got to be a new we've got to have tinfoil hat 2.0 at this point.
No,
right?
How ironic would that be if literally a tinfoil hat was the one thing that could save us?
Oh, I'm going to hope it is now.
There is a simpler way of doing that. You have the plant kingdoms, you have the stone mineral kingdoms that are there to aid humanity if they were willing to work with those kingdoms to help them with their healing and protection. So people can contemplate that into their healing mechanism.
Wow.
Now, did I lose you?
No, you've just left all of us pondering that thought. But I want to get Marty's thought on Nibiru and stuff like that, because that's something we've both looked into in the past, man.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go, Marty. Come on, is it coming now? Is it here?
Do you know? Brilliant. Well, I've been looking into that sort of stuff since, about 2007, when the whole awakening thing sort of happened. I was subject to the 2012 doom scenarios and all that kind of stuff. And, of course, the Nibiru stuff come into the mix. But I found patterns of previous years, 2003, even 1999, different predictions. You know, it's coming this year, it's coming that year. And it seems to be a common trend. It seems to die down for a little bit. And a few years later, the predictions start coming. And I think the thing is with it really is like a boy that cried wolf scenario. If this thing was actually there, I think because of all the psyops and failed dates and guys that have made money off it and stuff, because of those things that have passed, people don't have much credibility in the whole thing. But I think when you actually look back, there's very strong evidence to suggest that this thing did exist at some point. So I think it's arrogant to say, oh yeah, it doesn't exist and it'll never come, because I think it quite possibly could. But when they put dates on it, I just get a bit, because I've been through so many failed end times dates. But again, Boy Who Cried Wolf proved me wrong.
I'm totally with you on that,
Good
man.
point.
But there are some, instances where the mainstream media, as much as we don't believe them, have come out and invented, or admitted things like we live in a binary system. We've got some kind of perturbance out there messing around with Pluto. They've said that stuff throughout my whole life, just randomly here and there. I don't know. It seems to me like we could probably be part of a binary star system, and that wouldn't really be that, outlandish in terms of what we've seen in the universe now, man. And it also makes me wonder, with all of the experimentation that's going on deep down in Antarctica that nobody seems to be able to find out anything about. Just kind of weird.
And we're almost at the break, JD, but when you look at it, it's actually outlandish to think that we're a single star system when you look statistically. So we'll get back into more of this on the other side. We want more callers tonight, and we have got one of the strangest stories to come about CERN that you have ever heard today. Stay tuned, folks.
Have a good one later.
Anyway, thank you, Fran.
Have a great one.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Welcome back to your very favorite Friday hang spot, your Freaky Friday with the one and only Woo Crew, ever expanding, ever evolving. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we are really excited to have you guys all along for the ride tonight. Many, many, many fine folks in the chat room, and a huge shout out. 63 gentlemen in the chat room right now. Absolutely stellar numbers, and a lot of people on the live stream. Cannot thank you guys enough. The phone lines are open, you guys. You can get on board with the Woo Crew. Anybody that you'd like to shout out to here, 866-378-7884, also 886-37-TRUTH will get you through to the phone board. My name's JD. I'm basically hanging out with the fine crew from the KBS show tonight. Kev Baker, the one and only Big Marty, and also Mr. Johnny Whistles joining us. We also have a very special guest, Mr. Alex, my very favorite contributor, or one of my very favorite contributors to the KBS crew, hanging out with us from the Ukraine tonight. And I'll tell you what, gentlemen, we've covered some ground already in that first half an hour. I think we've been over some intergalactic and some interdimensional space here already. But we already had some fantastic callers, and one of those gentlemen who called in mentioned that pesky number 33 again, and that always gets my mind kind of reeling on the whole numerology tick. And I was curious, maybe since we've got a rookie on board tonight, Mr. Alex is, we're breaking him in proper on the Woo Crew tonight. Alex, I wanted to throw that to you. I'm wondering if your ears perk up when you hear that crazy number 33 as well.
Yeah, after that first phone call, was on my mind all the time, and I just remembered that, if you follow the Bible version, Jesus Christ was crucified at the age of 33, and as far as I understood the question, that was the Jewish holiday celebration of death, so that ties in.
And it's Prince William's 33rd birthday this year as well, folks. And of course, we're going to have a new lizard added to the planet in the next couple of days.
And I used to have 33 teeth.
John, brilliant.
Many we're down to now, John.
I'm just counting there, one.
Hey, one's better than none, man. But yeah, 33, interesting number. And it's a number that really does, I don't know if it plagues me or I'm fascinated, but everyone seems to have their own numbers. And 33, the connotations and the things attached to that. We've got the Masonic links with the fact that we used to have 33 vertebrae in the spine before the tailbone fused. 33's, guys, the 33rd parallel. You've got Kennedy being shot. You've got the Georgia Guidestones. Do I need to go on? But I'm going to get your guys' take on numbers. Marty, you're a numbers man. We've heard yours before, but tell us again, dude.
Yeah, no, I think numbers are really fascinating, and numerology and stuff like that, but just to take 33 into account there, the master number, master mason, 33 degrees of Freemasonry. Alex was saying there about the connections in the Bible with 33. And I think what it shows me is that there's some kind of deeper knowledge to all these numbers and frequency and stuff like that. And I think it's what the elites have known for a long time. And they've got the version they push out for us, and then the version for the initiated, which have all the secret stuff that we should know about. And I think they possibly have a more of an understanding of all this sort of stuff, you know, your synchronicities to certain numbers and your prompts to look at the clock at a certain time, all sorts of stuff. You know, you have those days and you just think, wow, this can't be a coincidence. And I don't know. I really don't know what it is, but I think the numbers give some sort of power. Maybe it's like some sort of black magic thing that they do. I really don't know.
Man, I think you nailed the nail on the head there when you was talking about how they put out two different sets of information, you know, because that's my big problem with astrology in general, is that we don't even know what month it is or what day it is, really, fundamentally. If you look at like just the months of the year they're laid out, you know, December is the 12th month of the year. Deca means 10, right? So October, same thing. You know, it's everything has been shuffled around. So I kind of wonder if there is potentially a lot of power in this astrology and in the combination of that with numerology, but we don't even have the foundation figured out. You know, you'd have to have like a key or some sort of premise to figure out, you know, from which point you work from. And so we're kind of just been thrown out into the ether in terms of that stuff. But why would Christine Lagarde come out and talk about how important the number 7 is? The lady makes $280,000 a minute. You know, she's got better things to do than come out and talk about mystery riddles to the world stage, in my opinion. And so, again, that number 7 comes back into effect, which would be September in our, you know, the way that we understand things. I don't know, man. I think you hit the nail on the head, though, Marty.
Oh, cheers, man. Thank you. Yeah, I've always found that sort of stuff fascinating. And just to answer Kev's earlier question, my numbers were 11 and 23. They seem to plague me some days, and you just can't get away from it. Some would say that it's the higher self, sort of looking for it once you see a pattern, like self-fulfilled. But I beg to differ because it happens too frequently.
Have you done any looking into the 7/23/15 date in terms of its, or have you been able to isolate any other dates inside of September that you're kind of keyed up on, Marty?
Not really. I mean, it's just September on a whole, of course, with the Jade Helm thing finishing, and then CERN, and then the partial eclipse that we have before the final blood moon there is actually called Feast of the Trumpets. So,
no, it's not. You made that up.
No, I didn't. You can go and check that out. But yeah. So, I'm not saying that I sort of believe in the religious prophecies and stuff, but I know the elites out there are crazy enough to bring them about, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And one of the trumpets for the elites, the mouthpiece of the IMF herself, you brought up the number 7 there, JD and Christine Lagarde. And I like to think we've always got new listeners coming to the show. So for their benefit, take a listen to this.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. As you can tell, I do as I'm told. And I thought I had to stand up at the time when my immediate predecessor would sit down. And clearly I failed. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me with you. I would like to thank the National Press Club and especially President Angela Grilling-Keane for not only inviting me to this prestigious venue, but essentially presenting the outline of what I want to talk to you about now. So it's as if we had prepared that together, which we have not. Now, let me first of all, of course, begin by wishing you all a Happy New Year. I guess it's still time to do that, given that we are just exactly halfway through between our Western New Year and the Lunar New Year, which will loom in a few weeks' time. I think it's also appropriate to wish ourselves a Happy New Year, given what I would like to talk to you about, which has to do with the global economy and what we should expect for 2014. Now, I'm going to test you numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Okay? Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number in all sorts of themes, religions, and I'm sure that you can compress numbers as well. So, if we think about 2014, all right, I'm just giving you 2014, you drop the 0, 14, 2 times 7. Okay, that's just by way of example, and we're going to carry on. So 2014 will be a milestone and hopefully a magic year in many respects. It will mark the 100th anniversary of the First World War back in 1914. It will mark the 70th anniversary, drop the 0, 7, of the Bretton Woods Conference that actually gave birth to the IMF. And it will be the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. 25th. Okay. It will also mark the 7th anniversary of the financial market jitters that quickly turned into the greatest global economic calamity since the Great Depression. The crisis still lingers. Yet, optimism is in the air. We've left the deep freeze behind us, and the horizon looks just a bit brighter. So my hope and my wish for 2014 is that after those 7
Well,
miserable
there you go,
years,
folks. We've had pretty much the gist of that, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but even when she goes to start talking there, when she says the word numerology, it's as if she goes into some kind of mind trance. It's numerology. And while we're on the numerology, let's take a look at today's date here in the UK right now. It is the 2nd of May, a 2 and a 5, a magic number 7. Woo!
Awesome, Kev. I was just thinking of the 7 from when she said that statement last year, 2014, obviously adding up to a 7 as well. And if you remember the 7th of July, 777, you had Israel beginning the bombardment of Gaza. So I don't know if that was another little sign out there to the elites in this whole 7 thing.
It definitely seems to me, in particular that video, I could point to a few things where they use weird, strange numbers, and it almost is as if they're transmitting a message to those who have got the ears to hear it and the eyes to see it. Now, I don't know if you agree with that, guys, but Alex, Christine Lagarde and her creepy number 7 speech, what did you make of that when that happened, man?
Well, I was shocked, because, she said that I'm doing as I was told. So I was like, wow, that's an alert.
It's as if she was actually giving away some of their code, JD. Very, very strange, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one I'd actually forgotten about, man. But that will always, always be a creepy clip.
Well, and it's going to be more creepy to me now that I'm associating it with with Marty's, pointing out the fact that that was when Israel launched its attack too. Because if you remember, that was the same day that MH17, 1 and a 7, was shot down. And I think personally that whole thing was supposed to be the beginning of World War III. I think that was supposed to be a big. That was going to be the kickoff, man. That we were going to blame it on Russia, and then we were going to go for it. So that date, boy, that really kind of got my hair stood up when you said that, Marty.
Yeah, you think of MH370 as well, 37. There's a lot of symbology, and then King Size Silver in the chat room there, 7 deadly sins. And this is a common theme that you see with the 777. A lot of mysticism within the various religions out there, all tying back to this 777 and the Messiah. And of course, you've got lucky number 7. It's no mistake. It's very ritualistic.
Oh, definitely.
7 wonders of the world. 8 if you include me.
Definitely. And to tie this back to last week's show, don't forget we had Anthony Patch talking about the 7 angels, or the 7 demonic spirits that they were trying to release from the hypercube of Saturn. And that takes us back to CERN, folks. And I've seen a few people in the chat room shouting out for the CERN machine. And I came across a really weird one today, Marty. And that involved an unidentified lying, minus the F, it's a lying object, being detected in one of the rings at CERN. Now, what am I talking about here? Unidentified objects, Marty?
David Cameron? I really don't. I missed this one. Fill us in.
Right, let's take a look at this, guys, because what's happened here is, and it was an article, and it's a top physicist called Albert de Roque. Now, he's a staff member at CERN and a professor at the University of Antwerp, Belgium, and UC Davis in California. Now, de Roque is a leading scientist on the CMS, and that's one of the Large Hadron Collider's key experiments. Not only a key experiment, this is the one where they'll be able to determine the existence of these extra dimensions that we keep talking about. So this article went on to quote Dr. de Roque as saying, "It will only take one significant deviation in the data to change everything. The upgraded machine works. Now we have to get to the real operation for physics." Now he went on to say that this is where it gets really, really weird, folks, because one issue the accelerator physicists remain cautiously aware of, he said, is an, and I quote, "unidentified line object in one of the beam pipes of this LHC's 17-mile underground tunnel." And this is where it gets even stranger, because this is a vacuum-sealed tube where the proton beams will eventually collide. And just when you thought it couldn't get any stranger, he goes on to say that this unidentified line object turns out not to be a problem for the operation. It's just something that we need to keep an eye on. It's in the vacuum tube, and it's not a problem if it doesn't move and remains stable. Now, guys, what the hell is going on at CERN?
Oh, this is my favorite story ever. I love this. I'm dying over here. Seriously. So what, in a nutshell, what's happened is something, we don't know what it is or where it came from or what it wants, but it's lodged itself someplace in the CERN ring in a vacuum sealed tube. Again, not any indication of where it's from, but we're not concerned about it. We're going to still send photons and stuff screaming past it at, near the speed of light. But the hope really is that it's not going to get angry at us. Is that really what I'm picking up on here? Because, waiter, check please. I'd like to go now. Thanks.
I mean, what is it? Where did it come from? And why are they not concerned? I mean, this really does throw into question how they're going to detect these extra dimensions that they are looking for. And one theory here is because it's in a vacuum sealed tube, we have to go into the quantum world, because right now, whatever that is, it potentially could be in that tube and also at the same time in an extra dimension. Now, merely by them trying to observe what it is, how big it is, anything at all, that could collapse that whole experiment. And I'm wondering if this is the infamous portholes that we have been speaking of, building up as this magnetic pressure is building up as well. And remember, we haven't even started colliding these particles yet. Now, this is all speculation on my part, but I'm taking it from data from one of the top physicists that is concerned with this CMS program. Now, he's actually got his own website, and it says that Albert de Roque is a senior research scientist and staff member at CERN, as well as the two universities I mentioned before. He's also a professor at the Institute of Particle Physics and Phenomenology in Durham, UK. He obtained his PhD at the University of Antwerp on an experiment at CERN studying the multi-particle dynamics in the hadron-hadron interactions by colliding meson beams on protons and nuclear targets. What I'm getting at here is, guys, if there's anyone qualified to talk about CERN, this probably would be one of the dudes to go to.
Dude, it's got the word phenomenologist is on his resume.
What is a phenomenologist?
Seriously, that wasn't in the major list when I went to college. That wasn't one thing that I could. I'm learning all kinds of stuff recently that I would really rather have been, and I'm going to put from now on phenomenologist at the top of that list because that's the most rad title I've ever heard. I trust him.
You would think a phenomenologist would have to like a wee look at a phenomenon.
To get his ology in it.
That's why he's cautiously approaching it. I'm just concerned that it's going to get angry. That's really where I'm at with this thing.
They've made this thing whatever it is, and they don't even know what it is. And as you say, they're going to be battering particle beams right through it, not knowing what it's going to do or what effect it's going to have. It's just, again, science, nuts, crazy.
Come on, Marty, this is your first take on this one. I must admit, this story is over on the website and it is going viral right now. I don't know what to make of it, but after the things we've been covering, man, come on. Mystery objects appearing out of the ether.
Well, I'm a bit sceptical because CERN's just actually undergone a $149 million upgrade, just finishing in April last month, just gone. 2 years in the making, this upgrade. And I'm thinking possibly was it some of the workmen down there, the engineers, they were eating the lunch and they just left something there and they shouldn't have done, and it's just got knocked in there, possibly.
Certainly is a possibility, but that begs the question, why do they think that this won't have any effect on the experiment when they start colliding 9 million protons a second?
Oh, I don't know, but just checking the CERN monitor, they're up to 6.5 at the moment. So,
and this is the thing, guys, because these past couple of days, there's been a couple of quakes in Papua New Guinea. Now, as myself and Marty and Johnny were covering last night, this seems to have travelled down the fault line. But again, today, we had sizable quakes in Papua New Guinea, one of about 6.7, I believe, again. And I checked the monitors, and again, CERN was on. It just seems to me that they really better get an eye on what is going on here, because there's certainly something making the earthquakes tick up at this time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of earth changes taking place, guys, and I don't think it's a new process. I think it's something that's been going on for thousands of years. However, I don't think it helps, all this tech and all these experiments that's going on right now. And as I was saying last night, or the night before, I think it was, who are we to say that the rate of these things hasn't actually increased? I can't really say, because we've only had technology for the past, 50, 100 years, and all this sort of equipment to monitor earthquakes and stuff. And even when you go back and look at all the ancient data, it's not very accurate. And a lot of these machines and stuff didn't actually exist. So you don't really know what you're looking at. A lot of people will make predictions. Well, I think this happened then and this happened then. And you don't really know. But one thing is for certain, there does seem to be a big shake-up at the moment around that ring of fire and surrounding areas. And that's not just trying to put fear out there, it's just something you can go and look at for yourself on all these monitors and stuff.
And I've sussed out who broke the CERN machine, Marty, and I can add some woo into this as well, because it was reported back, I believe it was on the 13th of April, that one of 4 members of CERN's ski club swept down a mountainside and a 49-year-old Frenchman died. Now, he was taken to a hospital, Marty, that had the name Sion. And then it goes on further down the article to say, wait for this, the other person from the CERN team that was critically injured was a 33-year-old Swiss man.
Oh, there you go. There's a lot of scepticism to the whole CERN thing. I can see a lot of people in the alternative media saying it's just rabbit holes and disinformation, this, that and the other. But I think once you speak to someone like Anthony Patch and you get a real perspective of everything, and it's sort of broken down into layman's terms, and you really see what they're doing there, and then you look at who owns CERN and all the connections and symbology and stuff. It is concerning, minus the con bit. It's something that you can't really take your eyes off, as well as everything else that's going on. And I know some people feel a little bit frustrated because you've got all these wars and murders and stuff going on, and it might seem that we cover it a little bit too much, but we really don't. We try and throw a mix of everything in there. And let's face it, CERN is a hot topic right now in the science world, and we know what these buggers are up to with the tech and agendas. So I just can't really take my eye off it. It's sort of something I keep checking, sort of thing.
And up to this point, JD, we do keep on adding new stuff like this mysterious object, an unidentified lying object. Maybe it's a politician, right enough.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even I honestly had to read that phrase 6 or 7 times, because individually I understand what all those words mean, but when you put them together like that, my brain completely goes just blank. It's an unidentified lying object. So there's a blob of something from somewhere with some sort of, agenda, assumably, because it just showed up at CERN, the most powerful and large machine on the planet right
I am
now.
firing up the CERN as we speak. I'm opening a portal and I'm trying to drag in a special guest. Kenneth Webb, how are you going, man?
What's up? It's freaky!
Certainly is freaky, man, and we're down the CERN woo hole. We've got unidentified lying objects turning up at CERN, Ken. What is going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. Just chilling. It's Friday. It was freaky. I was like, man, I knew you guys was on. I was like, oh, dang, I missed the time, so I had to jump on.
Always a welcome guest, Ken. But yeah, we're just talking about this mystery object that's turned up at CERN. The scientists there, they ain't too concerned about it. We are. And JD, you were going to add something to the mix as well, man.
I was just going to back Marty up with, I understand we talk about it a lot, but you don't have to be concerned about CERN because of some sort of goofy conspiracy theory. You need to just do 5 minutes worth of research on what the actual Muppets that are working there are saying that they are trying to do. When these people that have the biggest machine on the planet are telling you that they want to open up, 11 different dimensions and see where gravity is going to go. That's reality. That's really what their intention is. And those real goals actually have ramifications here in reality. And I'm concerned that the world was probably built in some sort of balance. And I think once we really start, to me, it's like when you take a rubber band and you stretch it really far back, right? And to me, that's what we're doing right now. We're using that CERN thing and we're stretching back a really big rubber band. And what's going to happen when it snaps, man, and everything goes back on the other way? No matter what, we're building inertia in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned, let alone what they're going to try and bring in interdimensionally or whatever. The idea that they're going to mess around with the gravitational field with such a powerful machine on a planet that, gravity's really not that strong, fundamentally. Anthony Patch taught us that last week. So, I don't know, man. It seems like this is way too much power in the hands of people that I just don't really trust, fundamentally.
These are the kind of guys that set off nuclear weapons and don't know if they're going to set the atmosphere alight. We're going to be cool.
These are the guys that used to, give not me but other people wedgies, in high school when we were too short to defend ourselves.
Maybe it's
that's
just
who these people are.
This seems like some kind of really expanded modern day version of the Philadelphia experiment we've got going on here, because it was the use of large magnets in that to shift the USS Eldridge. There's a bit of woo for you guys.
That's true, but remember what happened there? A whole bunch of the soldiers that were on that ship ended up, kind of impregnated into the metal. So we can only hope that maybe if it's going to affect somebody, it'll affect these idiots at CERN first.
And this also happened when, get this, some Special Forces soldiers tried to jump through the Stargate at CERN to the one in Iraq during Operation Uhuru, only for most of them to turn up dead, and they were reported as suicides. But hey, nothing to see here. Don't be concerned, because we'll be back right after the break.
You must unite what has been set aside.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to hour number 2, right here on Freaky Friday, on your number one network, www.truthfrequencyradio.com. And this truly is the United Nations of Woo that we've lined up for you tonight. We obviously have myself, Marty, and Johnny from the Kev Baker Show. We've got JD from the Red Pill Reports. We've got Alex all the way from Ukraine. And now, these latecomers showing up, I don't know, tut-tut. We've got Kenneth Webb, we've got Johnny King, and we have got the one and only Joe Joseph. And Joe, welcome to the Freaky Friday show right here. It's nice for you to join us. And we were just going into, before the break, the unidentified object at CERN. What's happening, man?
What the hell is going on?
You tell us.
There's an unidentified object at CERN, you say?
There certainly is, Joe. And this isn't just me coming up with this. This is one of the top physicists who runs the CMS part of the CERN experiment. Mm-hmm. And not only that, this is the detector where they will be able to actually prove the existence of the extra dimensions.
Oh, isn't that a coinky-dink?
Well, not in our world.
Dude, are you like Schrodinger's Kev tonight?
I've gone all quantum on us, Joe, because as I was explaining before, the fact this is in a vacuum-sealed tube, A, where did it come from?
Yeah.
And B, the kind of, the language that the physicists use, and he is totally concerned with quantum physics here. He says that the unidentified lying object turns out not to be a problem for the operation. It's just something that we need to keep an eye on. And he says that it's in the vacuum tube, and it's not a problem if it doesn't move and remain stable. Now, the power of observation would actually make that become unstable, possibly, and make it move. So the fact that they don't observe it, that keeps it in that it's there, and it's not, in one dimension and the other. Supersymmetry, exactly what they're trying to prove. And supersymmetry, just basics for anyone out there, that's the theory that every particle in the universe has a twin. Now, it could be in the dark matter, it could be somewhere else, but this is one of the things they're trying to detect during this atom smashing season that is coming up. And guess what? If they don't detect them, Joe, they're going to actually say that, well, it's not that they don't exist, it's just that we haven't been smashing them fast enough.
That's right. We haven't been, and we've already, I think we showed a couple weeks back when Tony Patch was on, the fact that they're planning on building like a 200-mile ring that could, I don't know, get up. I can't remember what it was, but it's over 100 tera electron volts.
Yeah.
Which, at that point, I mean, come on.
Yeah, they are trying to. They have been putting some proposals, some plans together for something far bigger than CERN, and then of course there was the thing in Japan, the colliding of antimatter, dark matter, and all kinds of experiments taking place. I mean, us guys, didn't we look at a list last week of all these different colliders across the planet? And
A ton of them, dude. Speaking of colliders, Johnny King, you've been colliding with a little bit of inventory here lately, haven't you?
I hope I never see another number again. I'd be so lucky. Am I to understand that they have captured an object and or entity and they have it in a vacuum tube?
It's in the actual tube where the collisions are going to take place, John. So in one of these tubes that is cooled to like near exact zero, in this vacuum, something has just manifested itself there.
That is interesting. Now, how did they know it manifested itself?
Well, they said it was something to do with when they were firing the beams around, which aren't actually colliding, they noticed a deviation.
Wow.
Wait a minute. Okay, so they noticed a deviation. Let's think that through for a second. They're shooting the photon around, getting faster, which means it's getting what? Mass,
bigger.
Right?
More mass.
Getting bigger, more mass. They noticed a deviation in the course, which means whatever this thing is in the vacuum tube. Is somebody in the shower? What's happening? I'm not in the shower, ladies and gentlemen.
It's in space and time.
It's being affected by the gravitational pull of this thing. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And yeah, we don't know where it came from, but so what does that
remember,
mean?
last week we were covering supermassive black holes and how they did warp space and time. And I was throwing out there that surely on the micro level, if you have these mini black holes, now I know we aren't smashing these particles yet, but just we're in the world of theoretical particle physics here. Anything is possible. So could it be that we have strangelets opening up? And like you say, JD, we're seeing a bending of the space.
And they don't know what it is. They say that and admit that they don't know what it is, but we're going to keep an eye on it, and it's no threat. It's like, how do you know that it's no threat or there's nothing to be alarmed about in this thing if you don't know what it is and what's going on? That don't make no sense to me.
I think it's because the threat level is either off or on at this point. So either it's going to get bigger, and by which I mean envelop the Earth, or it's going to get angry, and by which I mean kill the Earth. And that would be, the classical from, Egon standpoint.
Wait a minute. If it enveloped the Earth, or it encased the Earth, or sucked in the Earth, wouldn't that all be pretty much bad?
I would think so. That was where I was going with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah. Because I'm
but that from a physicist standpoint, that level of bad would mess up their experiment, and that
would
be
it
the
suck
point
us
at which
into a wormhole and spit us out in another galaxy?
I think that's what it is. I mean, honestly, let's think about this. We're trying to basically observe whether or not we can see gravity getting pulled through some type of hole. And we've talked about it on the show before, the speculation that there could be another group of CERN scientists looking back, or at least some sort of other entity looking back. Maybe this is the other entity's eyeball, trying to keep an eye on, or the beginning of, what they're hoping to manifest in terms of trying to grow a black hole, man. I don't know.
I tell you what, if they suck the whole planet down and we end up somewhere else, I'm going to be mad. I'm just going to tell you that. No, I'm serious, because it take us long enough to figure where we at now. Without these turds doing that stuff, it's like, this is what they launched the projectile down into the moon and all these kind of things. They always got some crap going on. And it's like, man, what are these fools doing? What do they got going on? It's like, and the rest of us is just along for the ride. But I'm serious. I'm going to be mad if they did time warp the whole planet, did something, sucked us down into another dimension or something. I'm going to be pissed off. I'm just going to say it like it is.
But look at that video. I'm sorry, Marty. You go right ahead, brother.
Oh, no, you're all right. No problem. It's good discussion getting going there. Just as you were talking about manifesting things and CERN and stuff like that, I couldn't get the thinking the brain thing out of my head. The little subliminal, which is shown in that cartoon there of this electromagnetic machine.
What do we do today, brain?
You know what, guys? I've figured out what's actually there, Marty. I think I've figured it out. And JD, you'll need to help me with this.
What is it?
Because I think it's one of these infamous Bernstein bears.
Oh, don't
God,
even get me
why
started.
did you say that? Why did you go there, dude?
That's after the fact, though, man. Okay. Do you want to go there? Do we want to talk about that?
Well, we're talking about time and space.
JD, hold on one second. Kev, listen. I not. No. Are you serious? We're going to do the Berenstain?
We must.
How are we in another dimension right now? I need to know. Damn it.
Well, we don't know. The only reason I brought that up.
You're so right.
Well, okay. Do we want to talk about? I don't want to drag us down to another depth of the rabbit hole and really bother people. Do we want to keep it on? Because I was trying to come back to the idea about the symmetry dance interpretation.
Keep it on CERN just now. The bears will hold because the chat room are thinking
do the bears.
Later.
Let's do the bears later. Okay, we'll do the bears later. I know Marty didn't finish his point. Go ahead, Marty.
That's right. I want Marty to pick up where he was here.
As I was saying about this subliminal with the connection
How
with
about them Red Sox? Yeah, I mean, that's great. Oh, sorry, Marty.
Well, you remember the last couple of Freaky Fridays, and we had Anthony talking about the possible connections with Saturn.
Yes.
For the idea of channeling and stuff like that. Well, go and actually look at where Saturn is positioned now in relation to CERN, and you tell me what you see. But anyway, moving on.
Really?
Yeah, really. And I've been watching this thing on the monitor, this CERN thing, pretty much been going on and off most of the day. And I'm starting to think, is there a correlation to?
Yeah, like are they starting to get that energetic connection between the planets?
And that would explain why NORAD might be moving everything underground if there's some kind of plasma connection about.
Yeah, could you imagine, Kev? What that would mean? Like if there was that much energy, that much plasma energy or static electricity, however it manifests itself, to the point where it just like pops everything, almost like an EMP.
Exactly, and they could even have the likes of troops throughout the states. Oh wait, they are.
How much do you think that these cats actually really know, or theoretically know? Like theoretically they know things and they're doing these tests. I mean, how much do you think the top cats out there, top scientists out there that are doing a lot of these things, do you think that they really know for definitively about other dimensions, time travel, or any of these other things? Do you think they know definitively, or they're like it's theoretically, and they're like just shooting in the dark, sticking their finger in an electric socket and see what happens? I mean, what do you guys think?
Johnny King, weigh in here.
Is this object there 24/7, or is it there only when they're powered up?
Yes, because they're saying they're wanting it to remain stable. So I'm thinking that means it has to be in that one place, not moving bigger, smaller, anything. So yeah, it must be there.
How do they contain it? If it,
well, it's in a vacuum-sealed tube, so they can't even observe it. But, I mean, going to Ken's point as well, this is all theoretical, and I wonder sometimes if the power of intention, them saying that, oh, maybe there should be theoretically a Higgs boson, then, you know what? Guess what? It comes into fruition when they go looking for it because of the power of intention. Seems to me everything they go looking for, they eventually find.
Yes. What do you think, Johnny King?
Oh, I think they're going to find the Higgs boson, and when they do, they will create new technologies based on that.
Well, let me ask you guys this: if that's the case, and the Higgs boson is this earth-shattering, groundbreaking new particle that just ushers in this new technology or whatever, I mean, you're basically talking about ripping a hole in the fabric of a dimension, or is that the way I interpret it? Like the Higgs field makes up like the veil?
It's everywhere. It's basically absolutely everywhere. It's what gives things its mass.
The way I understand it, Joe, is that if you understand that everything is a frequency and that all of that represents waves, just like water, man, there has to be a medium through all those waves to travel through. That is what they are talking about when they're talking about the Higgs boson, as far as what I could get from Anthony last week.
Wow.
So, yeah, when they're talking about ripping a hole into the Higgs boson field, I mean, that is the ether through which everything flows, as far as we got to last week, which to me is, I mean, if you really expand that into the spiritual, which is where I go with it, is that ether is, that's kind of the big G as far as I'm concerned.
And it's not even just God particles, because you've got the quarks, you've got the muons, you've got the gluons.
Why do you think they call it God particles, man? I mean, that's hello.
You know, it makes you wonder the type of knowledge that, because CERN's very compartmentalized, just like the military. Every scientist has a specific function. They do certain things. You have scientists there that are just looking for whatever it is they're writing a paper on. So it's not like there's this concerted effort amongst everybody to bring about, I don't know, open the pits of hell or whatever. But it just seems that way. It seems like, okay, everybody's doing this, but they all secretly know, like, I know.
Well, I think it'd be bigger than that, because the way you describe it, and I hadn't even thought about it that way, but if you think about the CERN facility as like a telescope, there's a whole bunch of different scientists that come in and each has their own project, and you get certain time to use it. And those projects are all dictated by grants, and all those grants are doled out by the military-industrial complex or whoever the heck. So they are kind of cherry-picking we'll just say nurturing the certain tidbits of research along at that, just happen to be at the biggest machine in the world that might suck us in half or whatever. Yeah.
Now
that's interesting.
But, it's like in this particle inside the tube, if indeed it's there, why would it just stay there? Even if it's in a vacuum, if it's a particle like that,
well, remember it was
vacuum
Tony,
tube.
It was Tony that said that quantum computer was the one that would hold it stable. So I'm wondering if that's part of the equation as well, because that's the one.
I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So do you think this is some sort of like a super concentrated plasma ball? Is that kind of what we're all picturing here? A little tiny sphere, or what?
I'm picturing the kind of thing that you were talking about when the black hole, they were peering through into the part of space where they were going.
So like just a blank space, essentially, which would have a gravitational pull, because that's exactly what they're trying to prove right now, really, right?
Well, allegedly, theoretically.
Allegedly, right.
Silence. Marty, Atlas.
Oh, well, one of the parts at CERN, Atlas, so just doing a little bit of checking, seeing if that had anything to it, like mythology or anything like that. And of course, in Greek mythology, Atlas was the Titan who held up the celestial spears, allegedly, and he was also given the task of holding the heavens on his shoulders as punishment from Zeus for leading the Titans in their battle with the Olympian gods for control of the heavens. And then, of course, one of the other parts of CERN, Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. I just like looking at all these names and seeing if there's any sort of meanings to them, because we know they like to use ancient stuff, and it's sort of like history repeats itself.
Well, the part where this guy works, the doctor I was referring to before, he's in the CMS detector, and that stands for nothing really too woo, unfortunately. It's compact muon solenoid, so it's definitely dealing with quantum experiments with muons been in there, guys.
We have the best listeners. Somebody in the chat room just put up a pretty good point, and it was Red Linky, and he says, a black hole in a vacuum chamber. Explain that, because wouldn't that be like counterintuitive?
Well, space is a vacuum, is it not?
Right, which always made me wonder, where's all that, getting sucked to? I mean, something's creating a vacuum if that's true.
The other dimension, dude, and this is what they're trying to prove. So are they trying to create that on a miniature scale and model it with the adiabatic computer?
I just don't know.
I think the vacuum thing is pretty interesting anyway, just on that alone. It's like negative space. It's like, what is negative space? Is there any negative space? I don't know, man. It gets pretty just, and we have to say is, especially here on this planet as people, we just don't know a lot of things. But I know that those cats out there doing things know a lot more than they're letting us know. And if they let us know a lot of this stuff, the scientists let us know, and we get the information, and somehow they know a lot more than they're telling us, for sure. But I never really understood the vacuum. Here's this vacuum. Here's this isolated space, this vacuum. Or negative space. I never understood. Is there negative space, really? I mean, as many times, because I always go back to some more simplistic things of a flat planet. Cats used to just swear up and down, oh, the earth is flat, blah, blah, blah. Then you find out it's round, and then there's still people to this day, right now, that you can search out that still swear up and down that the planet's flat. And this is no lie. I mean, it's like, do we really know any of this kind of stuff? And a lot of it really doesn't make any sense. And I don't know, man. It's just a crazy world, man. It's crazy.
It's a crazy world, Joe Joseph. Come on, man. You must have some thoughts on this. You're like a satellite kind of dude. You're the boffin here. You're Department of Defense, man.
That doesn't sound right.
He's just not playing with us at all, is he?
Oh, you killed him. No, I hope he's all right anyway. But it is a fascinating world. There's just so much stuff that we think we understand, and then we start looking into it, and it's like, wow. There's, guys that spend their whole life just looking at one topic, and there's still stuff they don't know about it. So,
and Jai D, you caught, I believe it was Steve Quayle the other night on the rundown. Was he talking about this kind of thing and the potential of Stargate technology?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat yourself, man. That my connections broke up a little right there.
Yeah, Steve Quayle the other night. I believe you caught him on the rundown.
Oh, what a
live.
Genius show on the rundown the other night. That was so good. And he was talking about Stargate technology. I think he was talking about, I was kind of in and out, but I think he was talking about some of the same things that you had brought up earlier with this Project Nibiru and this supposed jump to Iraq, which I'm not, I don't know anything about that. But yeah, that was a fantastic show with Steve Quayle on.
Yeah, I love to listen to Steve Quayle sometimes. It's fascinating when he refers to the Nephilim. And I think a lot of the stuff he refers to, the ancient Stargate technology, is similar to what they're trying to recreate at CERN. And the more I look into it, the more I speak to the likes of Tony Patch and listen to other people speaking on the subject, it really does seem to me that they are intending to open up other dimensions. And the fact that they're just kind of blasé about this object appearing, I bet you right now they're crunching the numbers as we speak to determine just exactly what this means.
Well, and you said it earlier, too, that in that same article, he was talking about how one, deviation off of the norm or one basic mistake in any of your algebra, and that whole thing is going to be sunk. So I'm always going to come back to the idea, too, is I'll go, again, this guy is a phenomenologist, so he's really outranks me. But what, how sure are we that they really can assess this thing correctly. You know what I mean? Like, how do they really know fundamentally that they haven't made a little math error and this thing is already growing or potentially already perturbed?
And who knows what they're actually doing to the entire planet, let alone, I mean, let's not forget that magnetic field pulling on the core. Let's think in the way this time. But also these tectonic plates. And then you've got the ley lines. CERN itself rumoured to be on a convergence of them. Just what are they doing?
Yeah, you also got to keep in mind, now this is on the concept that there hasn't been any shared extraterrestrial technology. Okay, so there's been no contact. I'm going to go woo on us here, but there's no sharing of information from any kind of extraterrestrial beings. There's no anything like that, and this is something new to them that they're actually experimenting on, that they're trying to find. Now, this is what they're sharing with us, and I have to always go back to that. I mean, there's so much, there's so many things. I mean, we have to look at our lives as just where we are, what we see through our history about them sharing information with us. Now, this is something that is being shared with us, right? So, therefore, we got to know that there's more to the story. There's more going on with this than what we're knowing. I mean, I know everybody's breaking down what we're being told and everything with a little bit of theory in it, but at the end of the day, you got to think, it's like you have to take a lot of things out of the equation that are possibilities. It is sharing of extraterrestrial technologies. I mean, so we'd have to automatically assume that there is no extraterrestrials out there sharing any of this technology or any of these concepts with us, because you would figure by having them and what their capabilities of doing would be is they would already have heads up on all of these kinds of things. So, I mean, what do you guys think about on this? I know you're looking at what's being presented to us, but what do you think about the other side of it? What is it that they're not telling us? What is it that they're not sharing with us? Because I don't necessarily always want to believe by what I've witnessed in my life. Anything that they're telling us is the exact reason why they're doing things and what they're learning, and that they didn't already know a lot of these things that were already there. Like, I mean, extra dimensional thing. Are they trying to prove this, or did they already know this? I mean, there's just so much here, man. There's so many questions that I have when it comes to this that, I get the little spider senses on the back of my neck every time I hear any of these types of things, because I got to take things out of the equation. Other life, other planets, advanced technologies from other places. I got to take that out because, okay, then nobody else weighed in on these kinds of things. And here, the human beings are on this planet actually trying to find out about these things and doing tests and things. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's gonna absolutely, Joe. I really do agree, Ken. Absolutely. When you look at technology and how we've progressed in so little time, it is amazing to think why now, and why didn't this happen over the thousands and millions of years that this place existed, and we existed, I believe. But yeah, it is absolutely fascinating when you take everything from the microchip onwards and think, really, did we create this? Was there some sort of hidden knowledge that maybe existed before?
Yeah, but I mean, these are the things that they share with us. So they had these things for a very long time. They never tell us. I mean, the military is never going to tell us all the stuff that they have. So therefore, it's like all of these experiments they do that they let us know. I mean, just about, traveling to other planets and the things that they find on other planets. I mean, as we know, I mean, anybody who does any research knows that they never told us, they never explained stuff correctly and told us exactly what they found and all of this stuff. I mean, unless they really did do those things. I mean, and they told us and they said, here's this experiment that we're going to do. And we're going, there were real scientists doing real scientific work. I'm talking about overall, and I don't know. I just don't trust them. I don't trust what they do. If they're telling us they're doing something for this reason, I don't believe they're doing it for this reason. And I don't think that they didn't already know these kinds of things. It just seems like you would have to take so much out of the equation for them to do that and let us know.
It's like it's break time.
Yeah.
Awesome, Ken. Totally.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Welcome back to the Freaky Friday with the United Nations of Woo. And already we are moving in to the second part of the show. Now, before I forget, folks, in hour number 3, we're going to have a guest coming up. Now, this is a 16-year-old gentleman called Brandon Keebler, and he's actually out to end warrantless surveillance, and he has previously helped restore the 4th and helped organise the anti-national security agency protests. Now, he's going to be coming up after the break, guys. So before we get there, though, let's finish up with a lot more woo. And Johnny King, I'm going to come to you because I believe you've got an interesting question for the panel.
Yes, Kevin or Joe, you were both there a few weeks ago before Freaky Friday. We were discussing what to talk about. And one of the articles, I believe, Kevin, you brought up was they discovered a microchip that's supposedly 300 million years old.
Oh, yeah, dude. There's a bunch of stuff they found.
Maybe they did master time travel soon enough.
Wow.
Ooh.
You know, there is a thought, and, you know, you can throw into the equation all these photos that would go to back up at least the possibility that we've had time travel. And, you know, talking of time quirks and time ripples, this would be the perfect time to bring back the bear.
Yes!
ID, what are we talking about, man?
This is why I love you, Kevin. You are such a man. You're a pro at segues.
I know.
Okay, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. You guys can think I'm crazy if you want to, but you want woo. This is woo, and I think the boys here will agree with me. Okay, harken back to the days of yesteryear when you were a young child, and you were probably, like me, had a collection of books. And one of the books that I used to have was a book about a little family of bears lived in a tree called the Berenstain Bears, right? Anybody remember that book out there? Okay, everybody close your minds collectively, close your eyes, think with me now about the covers of those books and the spelling of the name Berenstain Bears. And you might have called it Berenstain Bears. I've heard it pronounced Berenstein or Berenstein.
I've always called it Berenstein.
So, okay.
But
here's what I'm going to tell you. As far as I can tell, when I close my eyes and I picture the cover of that book, Barensstein. That's how I remember it was spelled. Everybody that I've ever spoken with about this subject remembers that it was spelled that way and was pronounced that way. Many, many, many people, I can only imagine. I mean, it's talking about an international best-selling series, Joe. I mean, This has been around. Here's the deal, guys. That's not how it's spelled. It's spelled Barenstain. Berenstain. It is. If you go find those books on your shelf
but I'm
right
saying
now,
that's not the way it was, dude.
Right. I know that. So this is one of these little topics that we can talk about. Kev was talking about it last week, and that's what sparked my memory about this potential that we may have already gone through some kind of, parallel universal shift. Maybe they did a beta test and we went through some kind of door and they had to leave little bitty markers. But it goes against the grain of the collective consciousness. Everybody that I have talked to will put their hand on a stack of Bibles and swear to whatever it is that's out there that it was Berenstain Bears with an E. It is not. It's with an A. And there's just that, to me, that rubs against the grain. I will never, to me, that's the equivalent of you telling me Sesame Street was spelled Sesame Street. If you told me that Sesame Street had always been spelled with an I, that is as abrasive to my memory as the name change in the Berenstain Bears, man. And it is it. You can go. The people have gone to their grandparents' house and dug out books from when they were, they haven't seen in 40 years, and the books are spelled A-I-N-E. And that, to me, just Kevin, what do you think about all this, man?
Well, you know me, when you brought this up last week, you melted my brain, it fell out my ear, and when I managed to pour it back in, I had a good think about it, and I was thinking about the things with time travel and paradoxes. We've got the grandfather paradox, and I think this would be the perfect way to demonstrate that you have had some kind of effect on the timeline. Just by changing the name of an author, it wouldn't have any direct real consequence on anything big, you wouldn't think. But at the same time, there would be a measurable change in people's consciousness, and people like us would be sitting on shows called Freaky Friday talking about it, and it would demonstrate that they could do it. Just my take, guys. Over to you.
Joe, I'm eager to get your take on this, man.
Let me tell you something, man. I distinctly remember it was STEIN.
I mean, it really was.
There was no stain. It was never stain. I had the books, man.
Yes.
And you're right. Every book I see
guys. We need to butt in right here because we've got a very special caller on the line. We'll get back to the bear theories in just a moment, but the reason we have to bring this caller on, they're calling all the way from Egypt. Welcome onto the Freaky Friday.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys? Good to hear you all. My name's Buckley.
Hey, thanks for calling. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm a big fan of the show and I always listen. And as you can tell, I'm part Brit, and I've been listening since I was back in the UK. And my question is really, really simple. We're all talking about, well, you guys are all talking about CERN and gluons and quarks and everything else. But has anybody actually ever asked themselves what energy actually is that they're messing with? Because nobody up until today, I've asked lots of scientists this question, what is energy? Everybody always gives you the answer that energy is something that allows you to do work. But that only tells you what it does, it doesn't tell you what it is.
Okay, guys, so basically, what is energy? A pretty good question, really. We talk about it all the time. We're going to be smashing things at up to 13, 14 teravolts. What is this energy, Joe?
Who knows? I have no clue what it is. It's like gravity. Okay, we know that it's out there, but what is gravity?
But that's the thing. Surely gravity is a form of energy.
That's
right.
I think
still,
that's what they're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's also the experiments they're doing with the dark matter and the dark energy, and they're trying to figure all that out, which is kind of scary, really, if you kind of believe the concepts of all that dark and light sort of stuff. It's like summoning the unknown sort of thing.
The only reason I ask is because you guys always bring in the psychological and spiritual side of things as well. And if we don't actually know what energy is, how do we not know that they're all tied in?
That's a fantastic point. Johnny King, what do you make of that, man?
I'm still trying to figure out what exactly it is as well. Does it have a temperature? Does it have a dual temperature? Does it cool off in the center and hotter out towards the middle, which could indicate a rift? Is it all one temperature, which could indicate if it has energy, it's got to have a temperature? Is this thing sentient?
And remember, John, though, we're dealing with the quantum world, so measuring any one of those factors isn't going to have a direct effect on it.
Oh,
exactly,
yeah. I mean, I think it all ties together, though. I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, this is all tied together. Everything, you know. I think, you know, when Tony brought up the electric universe last week, I've always gravitated to that. The idea that energy is what makes everything up. Is this? We're all energy. You know, everybody's a frequency. Well, that's energy. And I always gravitated to that. So I think there's a lot of truth in the fact that this is all, everything's related, you know?
Absolutely. I know somebody in the chat room said, isn't gravity a force? Well, I think energy is a property of that force of gravity. You know, it's just basic science and stuff, really.
Yeah, because you've got your electromagnetic force, you've got gravity, So
but,
it is.
but the thing about those is that we know the force carrier for electromagnetism, and we know the force carrier for the weak and the strong force. And there's only 4 types when you include gravity, and gravity is the one that we don't know about. So I can only assume that's the one that they're going after right now. So to kind of get back to the caller's question, it seems like gravity would be the end result energy that they're trying to be able to quantify. They're trying to be able to figure out what specific portion of matter is moving that takes gravity with it. What is the force carrier of gravity? And that's the last big mystery in quantum physics right now. Well, at least in terms of electromagnetism. As far as what I gathered from Anthony the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely, I completely agree. I think CERN is multifaceted.
But then shouldn't we be concentrating on observing the natural forms of it? Because, I mean, when you talk about ancient technologies as opposed to modern technologies like CERN and the pyramids, surely there are 2 sides of the same coin. Because one's just using natural means and one's using modern man-made means.
I think you're hitting it on the head, man. I read a story once talking about the energy production of the pyramids, and one of the rumors out there was that J.P. Morgan went himself and was actually climbed to the top of a pyramid. He took a wine glass and he wrapped it with wet newspaper and he held it up to the sky until sparks emitted from it, because it still has enough power to key into the natural ley lines and also the electronic energy that's in the air. And then you got to go back to what Kev was talking about earlier. You got all this stuff going on where they're manipulating not just the magnetism, but they're putting all this metal particulate in the air. It seems to me like getting back to they're trying to recreate the conditions that existed back then. They're trying to kind of one up the pyramid, so to speak, in a more controlled fashion. But I think that you're right on the money there, caller, in terms of both of these things, or all of these things, being connected. There's probably not a coincidence that they built CERN on a ley line. I mean, really,
And something else on a ley line, JD, is the pyramids. And it was Richard C. Hoagland. He's been to a few pyramids around the world now, and he's been measuring torsion fields coming off it, and that ties into this whole torus kind of physics that people are talking about nowadays. But that was an absolutely fantastic call there. But we're going to have to move on, guys, back to the Bears. So thank you very, very much for that call. And before we get to the end of this segment, guys, we need to get back to these Bears. The Bernstein Bears, what's happening?
Ooh, no idea. Great caller, and I'll leave it to you guys.
And Johnny King has actually found an article on the Bears.
Oh, here we go.
I did an Amazon search for it. The Big Book of Berenstain Bears, Berenstein.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like
you won't find one that says Stein, but everybody remembers it that way.
And here's what I would want to do with this if we were really going to delve into it, is you find the people who are young enough to not have that memory, and then you can start narrowing down when this particular change might have actually occurred, right? You can find kids who are 10 who've never seen it spelled with an E, or then find kids who are 11, just, hypothetical example, who all remember it that way. Now you've narrowed down on the year in which this potential change might have taken place. There's science behind these bears, I'm telling you, people.
Where's John Teeter? Is he in the chat? He'll know.
Yeah, right.
Well, he was a time traveler, guys. Come on.
No, yeah, of course, but still, man, think about that. That's really heavy. If something like that actually happened and we could catch it, wow.
Absolutely. What about the story? I don't want to take us off track, because I know we want to start talking about. I really want to get back to the Nazis on some of this archaeological stuff that they were doing. But there's other instances of things like that go against the grain of collective memory. One of them, I think, comes out of the UK. It's a picture of one of your royal family members eating a chicken leg, and apparently that was never actually a painting. But if you ask a whole bunch of people, they have seen it before. And I don't have the specifics in front of me, so if somebody out there knows what I'm talking about, they can lay it up in the chat, and I'll pass it back. But this Berenstain Bears thing is just the tip of the iceberg here, guys. There are little subtles, and if you were going to go back in the time and do something, and you wanted to prove that it was going to work, wouldn't you do something like that? I mean, wouldn't that be the perfect thing to do? Something small and yet significant?
That's the way I'm thinking of it.
I don't know. Just food for thought. You guys wanted woo, man. I'm bringing it to you. It's Friday night, and I'm ready to expand my brain space.
And talking of that, I think we should go where you were leading us before, and the Nazis. Because when we think of the Nazis, think of their quest for the ancient tech. Now, we could even look at the Nazi bell, and I believe that was at a site in just over the Polish border, I believe. And you know what they were doing there? They were accelerating particles of mercury in an attempt to create some kind of either anti-gravitic craft, some say time technology. Spinning things at high speed. What does that sound like?
Well, it sounds like CERN, but then there's that correlation with the mercury. Wasn't there a big, relic found, or a big city in the Amazon or something found recently with a huge discovery of mercury in it?
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
I'm trying to remember the name of that. I'll go and dig it up, man.
But see, there's this. Everything is correlated. Mercury, boy, that's an interesting thing to keep coming back to too. To see that correlation as a an element of choice for these guys, so to speak.
Yeah.
Joe Joseph, come on, man.
Dude, I am like, I don't know what to say.
Right, I found the ancient city, guys. Here it is. It's loading up now. It says archaeologists discover ancient lost city in the Honduran rainforest.
Mm-hmm.
And it says your 10-year-old self is probably freaking out right now because, what? Your 10-year-old self? What a strange way to start the article.
What?
A team of archaeologists from Colorado State has discovered an ancient city in the Honduran rainforest, complete with stone artifacts dating to 1000 to 1400 AD. But that's according to the National Geographic. Now, it's basically called the White City, or the City of the Monkey God.
That's cool.
How cool is that? That's like something out of a Bond movie, man. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that does honestly open up with your 10-year-old self is probably freaking out right now. Where? In the other dimension? Visible from the anomaly at CERN?
Wow. It's a good question because at this point, anything is possible. That's the problem. Oh, I mean, we're really at that point where they're messing with things that could actually do that kind of stuff.
So you say we could wake up one morning and there's going to be like a casino open at the Monkey City?
It could be.
Mayweather will be
why
fighting
not?
there tomorrow night?
Dude, I mean, this crazy crap is happening all over the place. The floating city in China that just appeared out of nowhere.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Rivers flowing full of like blood red stuff. Nothing to see here.
It's only
Cats
seen,
sleeping with dogs.
right? It was only seen by like a couple thousand people. Big floating city. No big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
What is that?
Men, bear, pigs.
Well, you think about it though. If it was potentially, the Chinese have been supposedly toying around with like floating aircraft carriers, giant, huge aircraft carriers that they could float around in space. Wouldn't that look like a floating city if you were somebody out in the middle of the woods, say, for a long time? Just saying. If this was potentially like some super future tech or not so future tech that, China's working on or whoever.
Maybe China are actually trying to populate the ghost cities with a interdimensional population that are about to just pop through the ether. I don't know.
Anything
Maybe
is
it's part of the
possible.
1,000 ninjas. Have you ever thought about that? They just pop out of nowhere? Just
pop.
1,000 ninjas?
I've not heard of the theory of the 1,000 ninjas, Joe.
We'll have to get Benjamin Fulford on for that.
Yeah, we'll get him. He'll tell us all about it.
All right, well, who's going to lead us in a discussion about these Nazis? Because I'm still really concerned about what these idiots were doing all that time ago, running around the Middle East looking for whatever they were looking for. Because I'm pretty sure, man, Anthony has really done a lot of enlightening on this program for the last couple of weeks. Didn't he talk about the fact that these people, digging up these artifacts and also having the sacred sacrament texts and things like that? They're basically...
Yeah, and they were really big into the Native American stuff too. Believe it or not, like
I
the
think that's
Indians.
because they were the Native Americans, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But that's the thing, because that Hitler wasn't like he was under orders. That's the thing. He was a puppet, and as prefaced by the now declassified paperwork that says, oh, by the way, we know that this U-boat pulled into Argentina here, and this U-boat came in here, and oh, by the way, we tested the burnt bodies out in the courtyard, and DNA doesn't match. You know? So we know that he was just playing his role, playing his part. So was that quest for all of these relics, did that have anything to do with Nazi? I don't think so. I think that his handlers were the ones that were benefiting from these excursions. And he was just the guy to execute, like, you know, he was the good soldier, if you will.
Were you thinking... I mean, we all know that he had a pretty close relationship with, I don't want to say necessarily the Vatican, but certain players in the Vatican. There's been a lot of letters unearthed. So do you think that was ultimately who was holding the reins on that one?
I totally think so.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it the Vril Society that were channeling interdimensional demons that were basically giving him the playbook?
Yeah, what was the name of the device? What's the name of it?
Oh, man.
Damn it, I remember that was a Freaky Friday.
But JD, you've brought up a really brilliant link there, and this ties back to the Nazi Bell and the Mercury. What is it you've found here, man?
This is a different place, Teotihuacan, which is down in Mexico. This is a Mexican pyramid that has been unearthed recently. Liquid mercury found down in this particular pyramid. I haven't apparently large quantities of the toxic liquid leads. Researchers believe that could be an undiscovered ancient ritual chamber, or even the tomb of a king that could all rest below the ancient city. It's about 30 miles outside of Mexico City, and it's man, this is pretty serious. I'll drop this link in the chat for all of you guys too. But this just really struck a chord there for me, Kev, when you were mentioning the liquid mercury, because I had never heard of that in relation to what the Nazis were doing with the Nazi bell.
Yeah, and it's Joseph Farrell. He's basically the preeminent kind of researcher when it comes to the Nazi bell. And that's where I heard that. And this was really during one of my wake-up moments. It was when I was, like, up 24/7. We've all been there. We've gone into one video after another, and God only knows where it leads you. Well, this one night, I ended up with Mercury spinning about in the bell. But I tell you what, guys, the Nazis, all this ancient tech, absolutely fascinating. Yeah. And Marty, you've even come up with the actual device.
Yeah, it was, I'm going to butcher this, but Die Glocke? Die Glock?
Das ist die Glock?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, any German listeners out there. It's absolutely fascinating when you see the stuff that they were messing with. And you get a little bit of hint in this in the video games, you know, in your Black Ops Zombies and stuff like that. You got the Nazis messing with teleportation devices, and we do see a lot of this sort of stuff through the media and the programming and stuff. However, I have to agree with Joe. I think these guys were just nothing more than puppets for the occult. The same, probably, occult bloodlines and stuff that have been in control pretty much as long as this power structure's been going. It makes me think there was an agenda for them to have so much tech because of as you can remember, they had... I think it was the first ones to have some of these like AK-47s and certain machine guns and rifles and stuff that far surpassed the capabilities of the other Western countries at that time. And it just seems like they were really advanced and pushed forward for some reason. And then you got to think, where did all that tech end up? Right in the Western world where it is now.
JD?
Wow, I'm just really floored. I mean, that's a really good correlation that Marty just made there. I'm kind of also trying to dig my way through some of this stuff, and there's a couple of things that poked out of this article when we're getting back to this Mercury thing for just a second here. They were talking about how the fact that they still don't really understand why these Mesoamericans had it, but they go on to say that they've actually discovered Mercury in a number of different ruins, and specifically the Mayan ruins have been heavy with mercury. And they also said that mercury, obviously very poisonous, was regarded as a rarity amongst these Mesoamerican people. And they say it may have borne ritualistic significance because of its reflective properties. And Reuters goes on saying that mercury, which may have been used to symbolize, listen to this, the underworld or a body of water, the underworld here, all right, could also lead them to a path to the royal tomb, right? But okay, speculation on the mercury continues here. In Mesoamerican lore, these reflective surfaces, like mirrors, they all functioned as portals into both the future as a river and also into the path that they believe, carries us off into death. So isn't that interesting that even back then, a spiritual connection to that component?
Absolutely fantastic. And, I'm just making connections in my head here, and I'll go to Johnny Whistles after this. But, we're talking about the Nazis using the mercury to try and attain anti-gravitic technology. Could it be that this pools of mercury are turning up around pyramids to enable them to move these massive stones? Could it be anti-gravity coming off it? Whistles.
Incredible, Kev, when you think about it. Mercury, liquid mercury. I mean, how long has that been down there, did you say?
Many, many years. This is the first excavation, I suppose, here. Let's see. A long time. This is the first dig they've done there. 1,800 years minimum is what they're saying.
Wow, man.
That's
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we're almost at the end of the Freaky Friday, hour number 2. And I don't know about you guys, but this has been absolutely fascinating. Having a great time. Now, we're going to be joined after the break by a guest. Stay tuned for that. JD, Marty, Johnny, Alex, Joe, Johnny King. What a show.
Yeah, awesome stuff, guys. Absolutely brilliant. I know some of the listeners out there saying, why you're not covering Baltimore or any of this stuff going on. Well, it is Freaky Friday, folks, and we did promise some woo for the Fridays. We've got the rest of the days of the week to cover the chaos, so let's put the tinfoil hat on.
Okay.
Mind.
Before we go to break, I'll give you a quick bit of Baltimore woo. Well, this is the weekend of Beltane, and we have seen fire festivals in Baltimore. Beltane. It's not too far of a stretch. And join us after the break, folks. We'll be going into some digital privacy.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. The Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, guys, to the start of the third hour of the Freaky Friday broadcast here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, truthfrequencyradio.com. Stole that one from Joe. Unfortunately, though, Joe and Johnny B have had to actually leave the broadcast tonight. So you're kind of stuck with me, myself, Kev, Johnny Whistles, JD Moore, and of course, Alexander over in Ukraine there. And we have the phone lines on too, and I believe we have a caller that is raring to go. We got a little sneak peek of him in the break. He's one of our regular callers, and I think he's got some woo for this Freaky Friday, don't you, caller? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You can hear me?
Oh, yeah, man, loud and clear.
Buddy.
Listen, you guys have been kind of all over the place, so I'm going to just throw out a few things without taking out a bunch of your time. I wanted to say Anthony Patch had said they had already found the Higgs boson, and they were looking beyond that to the thing that's sitting in their vacuum tube, blah, blah. Could that be outside intervention, possibly? And 3, you guys got onto the Nazis. Now, everybody knows the Nazis' technology was way, way further advanced than any other technologies that were out there. In fact, they had the nuclear bomb, and had they continued working on it, they would have had it long before we invaded Berlin. And they stopped their project to work on something. It's like the Stonehenge kind of looking thing. And I want to say it was in Poland, maybe it's Norway, something up there. But Hitler had an occult. I want to say they called them the Tool, the Fuel, or something like that.
Yeah,
and they were supposed to be. Yeah, and they were, all these people disappeared. They just disappeared. They dropped everything on this nuclear bomb to go work on this other project. I mean, everything got dropped. All their resources went into this project that nobody could understand why they did it. And the people that were involved in this, and some of the people that were known to be his mystic advisors, they just all disappeared. They just all kind of vanished, and everything that was at that place vanished. They wanted to say that it could have possibly been some type of machine that they could travel interdimensionally with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to what we're seeing.
You know what? The Nazi bell. That's what it is, the Nazi bell.
Let's take that in order there. You referred to the Higgs boson, first of all, and you can go out there, guys, you can research this, but the physicists at CERN did declare that they had detected, theoretically, the Higgs boson. Now, there are other particles in that Higgs field that they could well still be trying to detect, and with them up in the power, that means they'll be able to detect particles now of a greater mass. So every time they up the power, they're going to find new particles at different masses. Now, guys, the caller also said, could this anomaly be some way to almost scupper the experiment? And that's really fascinating. I'll come to you first, Marty, but that throws back the story back around 2012, I believe it was, when they were saying that time travellers, theoretically, may be coming back to some divine intervention because this was a doomsday machine.
Ooh, John Titor in the chat. Call in, man. I'm sure you could give us some knowledge on all this time travel stuff. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, it's something that I've always been fascinated with, is the whole time travel thing. I think in my early days, I've seen a couple of movies like Time Cop and, the old ones and stuff. And I don't know, it just gets your mind thinking about all this sort of stuff, and it just seems so futuristic and far-fetched. And then here I am, 30 years old, seeing the stuff they're messing with, and it doesn't seem so far-fetched anymore, guys.
Definitely not. Johnny Whistles.
Okay, but when I seen that story, when you put it up, I shared it, and that's the headline that I put on it. So maybe they sent something down to stop these people doing what they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly, because if we can actually participate in time travel, then that means both past, present and future is all occurring at once. And if there is a moment in history where us humans are going to foul up, then it would only stand to reason that if the technology existed on this planet, then they would actually come back to intervene. Now, JD, there's a lot of if, buts, maybes and speculation in there, but who's to say? This is a strange world we're living in.
Well, and that to me is really the bottom line here, is that we just don't know. I'm coming back to the idea of whether or not this thing could be here to prevent, CERN from operating. But I would hope that all of our collected efforts in sending out vibes to the universe, asking them to potentially unplug this thing, would culminate into something a little bit more than a speck in a vacuum tube. Just saying. And also the fact that these guys are not super concerned about it tells me that it may not have the potential that we hope that it might have of destroying this thing. So I'm leaning more towards, since they don't know what it is and it just popped into existence, you brought up that idea of the symmetry inside of, what was it that you were talking about? Two different molecules that existed that were absolutely identical. What was that term, Kevin?
Yeah, it's supersymmetry, and it's theoretical that basically all particles in existence, they have a twin. Now, this would explain what Einstein called spooky action at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, this could be without them observing it, JD, and it's the same principle that occurs in basically quantum computing. Then who's to know?
Well, and we've heard that term before, as above, so below. And if they're looking in dark matter, if we can understand that there's potentially, the mirror image of something, and in our case, what we're talking about would be the observer. If there's a mirror image of that on the other side, then to me, this thing seems like if you're at the point of creation inside this tube, that would be the point at which the observer would potentially show up. So to me, that seems like this is the observer from the other side.
And, talking of observers, this is brilliant because this is exactly what they called one of the sets of characters in the TV show Fringe. And this is exactly what this was dealing with. A parallel universe just remotely removed from our own. They pierced through the veil and you had two parallel universes. On the other side, for an example, the Twin Towers were still standing. And when we're talking about interdimensional stuff and Fringe in particular, let's go to the Fringe division girl herself, Nano Girl.
Hey. I hope I'm not interrupting this really awesome guy sort of deal tonight.
No, definitely not. We were meant to have a guest, but there's been some kind of mix-up. Unfortunately, I think we were meant to phone him, but we can't do that from here in the UK. So if you're listening out there, then please, Brandon, call in to the show on 866 37 Truth, 866 37 87 884. Nano Girl, we're talking about interdimensional stuff here.
Oh, I know. You guys have been off the rocks tonight. I really love it, and I'm still back on time travel. But I think I can kind of keep up with you guys on this one. But great show tonight. Interesting subjects.
Well, let's start with the time travel because we know that's where we all live. The bears. What's happening with these bears of JIDs?
I love the bears. Well, okay, I know that on your show and other shows, I've been saying for a very long time that they've been doing time travel forever. And I still think it isn't necessarily the way we think it is, but yes, it exists. And I think that's why they've been so successful at changing the future and knowing exactly what to do, because they were able to reach out. Didn't they even say they have something where they can send a question at CERN and they get an answer? Right?
That's exactly what they said that they could do. Yeah, absolutely. And
that's exactly what happens in quantum computing as well when you think about it, because that qubit, which has the electron in it, it burrows through with quantum tunneling to another dimension, as Tony was explaining last week.
Exactly. So they've been doing this for a while. Who knows, that might have been the main reason they did CERN. I think, JD, you have a good point that if you go back to a lot of what Joseph P. Farrell has said about the Nazis and all of the searching they did, and they got all this information, they certainly didn't share it with us. And all the stuff that they've been doing, I mean, they've been like 25 steps ahead of us all along the road. And I think a part of it, a tool in their toolbox, has been the fact that they have had access to the future that we did not have. And I can't tell you how many people, especially 2 or 3 years ago, said to me, I don't remember my life being like this. It was something else. This is not where the road I was on. This is not the result that I remember creating or having. So you're on the button tonight, JD. Right there.
Oh, I'm telling you, I owe it all to the Berenstain Bears, though. But really, stuff like that really is the proof in the pudding to me that something has changed. Because to me, again, it's the equivalent of telling me that Sesame Street was spelled with an I. And it goes against the collective grain of the memories of all the people that I've spoken to about it. I mean, for the most part, there's people out there who obviously, remember it the other way, which again, that in and of itself is another kind of anomaly. Why, how much of the majority of people out there, remember it a certain way. And it's just, I have no doubt that they have the ability to travel in time. I'm always torn about the idea of how they might do it, and kind of like the pillars of events that might exist. As there might be these grand pillars of events like 9/11 and things like that had to happen a certain way, and then outside of those things, there's all kinds of deviating timelines. But I don't know. The world is just a really wild place, and the Bears just really wig me out. I don't know what else to say about it.
Let me throw one more thing out there, too. For all of us sci-fi freaks, whether you read books or watch the shows, if every single thing else that has happened in those sci-fi shows is happening, tell me how time travel is not happening, and that goes back 20, 30, 40 years in their shows.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the old Star Trek stuff. They've got the tablets and stuff, and we're using them now. It's just people thought back then, what's that little screen they're looking at? Come on, that's so far-fetched. It just makes you think, did they have some sort of insight into all this future tech? Have they just held it back that long? It just does make you wonder. But just before we move on, I just want to say thanks to the caller for calling in. We didn't forget about you, sir. We was going to go back to you, but it appears you have dropped off the line. But thanks for calling in. Great stuff.
Yeah, I apologize for getting away from the Nazis on that one. I just, anytime anybody brings the Bears up to me, or just examples of time travel right now, my brain just goes completely haywire, because it's just such a fascinating topic to me. And to me, if you're going to be flexing the control for the rest of time, that's the one thing that you've got to get nailed down. You've got to be able to go make adjustments as they're needed. And I think the Berenstain Bears, I think it was a beta test, man, or it was just one thing. Maybe as a college student, went back and just played a prank. I don't have any idea, but, we've got those crazy stories about the guy who teleported off to Mars. Marty, I think Kevin was bringing up a story earlier about this Project Nibiru. Have you looked into that at all? Or Kevin, do you want to comment on that? Because I haven't heard anything about that, and that really kind of piqued my ears earlier.
You'll need to actually let me dig that one up, but it was first brought to me by actually Steve Quayle, who you were listening to the other night. But, I was actually going to get back to almost what the caller was on there. Sorry to take you away from that. I'll dig that up in just a moment, though.
Okay.
But that was the fact that he was talking about the Nazis and how they all disappeared. And I think this would be brilliant to get Nano's take on this, because we share the theory, and we'll get the other guys on the panel's thoughts as well, that there could be some kind of breakaway civilization. And who's to say it wasn't the Nazis that were the first ones to get this going? Nano, breakaway.
According to Joseph P. Farrell, that's absolutely right. They had the Nazi bell, which they're not exactly still completely sure what it was. It's his contention that although we brought over the Nazi scientists, and a lot of them stayed, I think, in Germany, they did not share the Nazi bell. They went off to South America, Argentina, and they went off to do their thing, and they never did share that particular piece of the pie, which means they never disappeared. They had a lot of money. I mean, look at all the land that the Bushes own down there, and the aquifer, and all kinds of stuff that they own way down there in Argentina. So, absolutely. I have to say 100%.
Okay then, so let's go to Alex over in Ukraine. Let's bring you in here, man. Alex, do you think there's some kind of breakaway civilization that we don't know about living out in amongst the stars?
It could be, yeah, it could be. I mean, do you remember that Atlantis, the world under the ocean? I mean, anything's possible.
Definitely, and that would suggest that possibly we've got two parallel NASA programs going on. JD, what's your thoughts on a breakaway civilization?
Man, I'll tell you what, I heard the head of the JPL a number of years ago at a conference, and JPL is obviously, the people who provide the booster rockets for NASA. And this guy flat out said at the end of this particular presentation that we now have the technology to send ET home. And he didn't really have to go into much more detail than that, but we keep hearing all this stuff. They're disclosing on mainstream media now this, experimental propulsion system that just happens to wrinkle the fabric of time and work, through, magnetism, and will let you accelerate faster than we could ever think is possible. And that's in the mainstream news now. So the idea that, again, they're at least 40 years ahead of us, if not longer, to me tells me that this stuff has been around for freaking ever. And I've also heard many people tell me that we have established a colony on Mars back in May, I think, of 1962 or thereabouts, which makes a lot of sense to me if you're going to go up there and start terraforming. These people that are planning on exiting this planet, which I guarantee you is what these people are doing, if they can't kill all of us off, or if there is some kind of natural disaster, they're going to have a plan for that. They've got all the money. 87 people in the world have half the wealth, okay? That's it. Those 87 people, they're going to get out of here when the getting out of here is good. And part of that, probably, contingency plan, if you're smart, would be part of terraforming Mars. Of course they're in charge of this stuff. Of course they're light years ahead of where we are now. And I really think they've got some sort of semblance of control over time itself. Because you talk to anybody these days, even young kids are starting to feel the quickening. You know what I mean? What do you guys think about the quickening?
Oh, definitely. Johnny Whistles, you're one to jump in here, man.
Yeah, I was just thinking that quite a lot of the things that we see up there really is ours, Kev. I think we've had a civilization somewhere else, as you say, for many years now. And I think, was it just the other day there that they came out and said that they've actually got warp drive now, that they could get you to Mars and ours.
Yeah, I seen that. That was one of the British media outlets reporting on that. I was just trying to find the link there, but I don't seem to be able to find it at the moment. But yeah, I did see that. Some sort of NASA tech that they've been working on for quite some time. And yeah, they've just finally told the public. about it. But yeah, how long have they really had it for? And I've got to agree with you guys. I think they've had secret space programs and these sort of plans, at least for the breakaway civilizations, for right back as far as the space program themselves started. I think they realise what a boiling pot the world is, and how any number of things, be it natural or man-made, could actually cause absolute devastation. And I think they know this one day, so that is probably the only answer to them. It's just who will they take with them.
You know, also the interesting point that Farrell points out is that these guys, whoever these guys are, wanted to create a way to not be a part of a Babylon situation, a Babylon tower. In other words, they didn't want to be here if for some reason we set ourselves back to the beginning again. We do some catastrophic, idiotic thing, or the powers of E beyond the powers of B, whoever owns this place, comes in and goes, you know what? We've had it with you people. We're sending you back to cave people time. And we all get sent back, and then they'd be off of the planet. And Farrell has talked a lot about that. The other thing that I think is really interesting is how come we can't get is it the F-35s? How come we can't get those to work, but we're terraforming Mars? How do you figure that one out? I don't know. But anyway, and the quickening, it goes right back to our good friend and pal, Art Bell, and Whitley Strieber and what's going on. And I totally believe that time, again, I've asked Kev this, and Kev says he's working on it. I would love to talk to somebody who has put as much time in as Anthony has on CERN about time. Ooh. What is it really? Mm-hmm. What can it do? What tool is it that we're missing? Because I think that's an important part of the key. What in holy heck is time, really?
Well, I've got Andrew Basaggio on my Skype. He's one guy we could bring on. However, I'm working on something, Nano. Now, I'm just in the very early stages. I've sent out email feelers here.
A teaser,
and trust me, if I get this guy, this is going to be huge. But more of that if we get further down that road. But time is so fascinating.
It is.
And listen, guys, JD, you were asking here about the Stargate thing in and around Iraq. Now, I was mentioning this thing about the Special Forces troops. Now, this comes from an article from Ground Zero Media, Clyde Lewis, and this is back in 2012, and it's called CERN and the Mayan Doppelganger. Now, it's obviously talking about CERN. It says here, it was reported that in 1999, CERN proposed and carried out quantum vortex experiments searching for solar axions. Axions are hypothetical particles that are components of dark matter. In order to find these axions, CERN proposed the use of a decommissioned magnet called Satan. Now, it was an acronym for the Solar Axiom Telescopic Antenna. One of the attempts at creating a portal anchor happened in an area where there is rumoured to be an ancient Stargate in the real ancient Babylon in Iraq. And on September the 8th, 2008, something happened in the Iraq city of Al-Hilal. Al-Hilal has been rumoured to be a city where a Stargate exists, and it was reported that there was a cover-up where nearly 20 American troops died as they attempted to cross through a gate conduit between the collider at CERN and one of the anchor gates at Al-Hilal. Now, according to the mainstream news reports, all of these soldiers committed a mass suicide. However, one of these peculiarities reported in FARS news agencies was that Iraqi security sources reported that 21 US troops had committed suicide inside a former Iraqi Air Force base, and that the 21 troops were treated in a hospital, but only 5 troops survived and wound up missing. Narcotics were allegedly used in the suicides. Now, it goes on to say that the servicemen belonged to a unit of the US Airborne Division. The question is, how did so many soldiers have access to potent narcotics, and what happened to the 5 survivors? Here is where we add the woo. a witness reported that the body of the US troops were hideous and deformed and misshapen in a way that they looked as if they were potentially 5,000-year-old mummies. Then on September the 11th, 2008, it was reported that the collider officially went online, and on September the 10th, the day before, with a test firing. So here we have talk of ancient stargates in Babylon, CERN, and 21 Special Forces US airborne troops appearing like mummies. Guys, what's going on?
Boggles your mind. I mean, seriously, but you got to think they're not just going to send random, soldier off the street kind of guys through this thing, right? They're going to send the best of the best. So really what we're talking about is another event similar to the downing of the SEAL Team 6, right? Because you're going to send special ops if you're going to go explore some crazy Stargate, right? I would hope.
You would think so.
This seems to me like even more of a cover-up then, because I would think that a loss like that would be mainstream news for sure. So this is just totally bizarre to me, Kev.
Bizarre is just scratching the surface on this one, guys. Marty, any takes on this?
No, not directly, but I think this indirectly might tie into the whole tech itself. And it refers to the article that Whistles mentioned before, our good friend Johnny. It was about the warp drive thing NASA was announcing. And this is in the Independent UK. It says NASA may have successfully tested a form of space flight that could carry people to the moon in just a few short hours and eventually let us fly at speeds approaching that of light. It says the agency has built an electromagnetic drive, EM drive, using technology that shouldn't be possible in the current understanding of physics. And this comes from NASA's spaceflight.com. And some of the guys discussing this are allegedly NASA engineers and being verified according to CNET. It's just showing you that this whole understanding of physics and science may be just void and corrupt. And that could mean the possibility of these stargates and stuff. They could actually be real, guys. The possibility to transport someone at those speeds and teleportation and stuff seems far-fetched, but I don't know.
To me, that just seems like an admission that all our textbooks are wrong. That's all they're really saying, is that they're saying, well, we're using something that you guys can't really understand because you guys are operating on this whole other level down there, and so it really shouldn't work because you guys are limited by the scope of what we've allowed you to know so far. You know what I mean? That seems to be the most reasonable thing that I'm pulling out of that article.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did they do with this tech and the stuff that they could have found in Iraq, what Kev was mentioning, all these hidden underground stuff and the archives and stuff? Maybe this is what it is. Maybe they're looking into it, but it's just slowly disclosing it bit by bit. Nano, you had a take?
The only thing I was going to ask is that I don't think there are any secrets. That's the amazing thing. It's like we're all connected into this sort of mind supercomputer of our own, and I think they use all the subterfuge, but I think a part of them taking the steps that they are taking now is that they've had to expose some of this stuff whether they wanted to or not, and they're playing lots of games. If we had a whiteboard, can you imagine everything that would be on that whiteboard? We'd need 10 of them.
Oh, and the rest probably. And you know what, folks? The break has sneaked up on us. We'll be back with the last section of Freaky Friday. Fire up the CERN. Maybe we'll have another couple hours left. Who knows? Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Truth Frequency and Freaky Friday. And I think we're just about zooming out of the planet. We may think about zooming back, but I doubt it. So while we were on the break, we were all thinking about what do we want to do the last 30 minutes, unless, of course, CERN does give us a couple of extra hours, like Kev mentioned. One of the things I've been thinking about this last week is kind of a consciousness change, especially if you're living in the U.S. of A., and all the things that have been going down. So my thing is, where do we go from here? And what kind of things are we going to be dealing with in the future? So JD, you were talking about some things, some scientific things, some what did you say? Some like the bird flu and some medical
we were going
stuff.
into some
Right.
kind of the medical woo kind of thing, and we do have a pretty significant bird flu situation going on here in the United States. I think so far between like turkeys in Wisconsin and also the different egg laying chickens, in Iowa, we're up to a pretty significant number right now, and it's not quite as bad as it's ever been before, but it certainly could be in the future. And then we've also got the first occurrence of a dog to human transference of the plague happening out in Colorado, but it's no big deal. It's just the first time it's ever happened, ever.
What?
So that's probably
Hang on, wait a
the
minute.
plague. You remember when all those people died a long time ago and it was called the plague?
Whoa.
That's this one. So, the plague actually kind of exists out in nature. It really runs rampant out in like prairie gophers out in the western states here in the United States. It's not rampant, but it does exist, and it does happen to affect dogs and cats if they're, out in the area. And this particular dog got sick and was dead within 24 hours, and the owner came down with it. And actually, not only the owner, but the veterinarian and two of the vet assistants that were working on the dog while they had to euthanize it were all came down with the plague. And the plague is just the plague. If it gets into your lymph nodes, that's the bubonic plague. He actually ended up getting a pneumonic plague, which goes into your lungs. So that's why he was able to recover. But he was in the hospital like 23 days. That's a pretty big deal. And again, this is the first time ever that we've seen the plague jump from dogs to people, and cats can also be.
Bigger killer is democide.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean, it seemed to be a pretty big deal. But
Which biotech company designed this one?
Oh, you have to wonder, don't you? I mean, and you guys want to talk about some medical woo. I sent you guys an article earlier. I'll pull this in the chat here too about these researchers chemically controlling a mouse's mind for science. Did you guys pick up on that? This is crazy. So these people, and this isn't really new. They're let me get this in the chat room here. Hang on. Sorry, I got to work three things at once here. Not really a new science, but what they're doing is using chemicals to alter neuron receptors in a mouse's brain, right, to either on or off. But what's interesting in this particular situation, well, there's a couple of things. So this research is actually the culmination of a whole bunch of work done over the last decade, and it targets these receptors in the head. They're working on chemical specific. Well, let's call it what it is. It's the scientist name for this program is DREADS, DREADDS, DREADS. Aren't these acronyms awesome? You got to wonder who comes up with these.
Beautiful.
Designer receptor exclusively activated by a designer drug. So the scope of this project isn't to create the designer drug to work on these neuroreceptors in the mouse's brain. The scope of the project was to use a virus to genetically alter the neurons in the mouse's brains to then make it available to be subjected to the chemical manipulation, so to speak. So they've actually got both sides of the coin figured out here. They've been able to mess with your neurons with chemicals forever. Now they can use a virus to change the scope of your neurons in your brain, or ostensibly a mouse in this particular case, and then use whatever chemical they want to chemically control you into having, in this particular case, it was appetite cravings or lethargy. But I imagine that they probably have the old whiteboard, as Nana would say, is probably getting pretty full over at their offices these days.
And
so what do you guys make of that?
Well, when it comes to inserting viruses into people, this could well be behind the push to have mandatory vaccinations globally at some point. We could have the chemtrails in there. Wow, and this opens up the whole mind control thing. This must be going on.
Yeah.
Have you guys, in the last 8 years, I think I've had one or two surgeries for some small things. And I'm very susceptible, or I know I don't take drugs. I don't take anything. And so I can kind of sense when you take things with it. They don't seem to kill the pain, but they sure seem to mess up your head. And it seems like they've been practicing this kind of thing on us for a pretty long time. This how to manipulate your neurons or how to do all kinds of stuff. So the drugs you take don't kill pain. They just sort of mess with your body. It's weird.
Yeah,
I think the drugs that you take, actually, they don't cure anything.
No.
They just, as you say, it manages pain and nothing else. Nothing is being done to actually cure what's wrong with you. All you're given is just pain relief in some sort of way, whether it knocks you to sleep, whether it knocks your head crazy. It's been like that for years.
There doesn't seem to be a profit in the cure industry these days, guys. I don't know if you can agree, but JD, fascinating article. Absolutely. It's game-changing as well.
It is game-changing. I got to go back to the chat room here real quick. One of the members of the chat room here put a great quote in this. El Dumio just threw this up, and it says, there will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will, in fact, have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it because they will be so distracted from any desire to rebel against propaganda, brainwashing, or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. Aldous Huxley. Fantastic quote, El Dumio. Thank you for putting that in the chat. But I think that hits it on the head where we're going here. Nano, what do you think?
Absolutely. And I know I think I shared this on your show this week that I met that guy from Stanford about 10 years ago.
That's
and
right.
He was, Remember, he was developing the happy chip.
That's right.
So
Right
now,
through your brain.
We can do the happy virus or the happy whatever what was it what were they using to put it in your body? Is it a virus or a
It was a virus, yes ma'am.
Yeah.
That's
a happy virus. And so you don't have to mess with a chip. It's a happy virus, and you can be happy all the time.
Or they could just put lithium in the drinking water. Another great idea they've come up with.
This is so far beyond that. You have to think, what's a virus? What's the capability of a virus, though? They've been spreading viruses and spraying stuff. They used to spray stuff in the cities in St. Louis here back in the 1950s to watch the spread of disease. We've seen them do that in subway systems and things like that. This is conveniently aerosolized, Martin, back me up on that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about this virus itself and the whole DREADS project. Well, if you look at it, what it really says, designer receptor, and it talks about how they make these specialized receptors by using this virus, which says to me that they're actually putting receptors into you that don't even exist. So that, like you say, you can be susceptible and open to whatever crap they're trying to push at us next. And it's just like mind control on a mass level. God, if they were to put this stuff out in chemtrails, what they could really do to target populations. I don't know, but it's just so like, wow.
And then take that a step further. If they are chemtrailing this kind of stuff on all of us, there's 7 billion of us acting almost like antennas. Who's to say there isn't some kind of nano antenna in there as well? And then they network us all together. Ooh.
I think you should count on that. I am absolutely. I would be shocked if they weren't doing that.
Well, here's the question: then, does that kind of hijack the ordinary thing that we call consciousness? Because then they will be the ones almost implanting our thoughts. Because where do our thoughts come from? Where do our dreams come from? Are they all chemical reactions in the brain?
I asked myself. I'm sorry. I'm going to throw one thing in. I ask myself that every day: is this my thought or is this Memorex? Go for it, JD.
Just thinking about Morgellons. Think about how much they've worked on these, synthesized biological entities on a nanoscale, and what that could do if it got into your brain and created fake neurons, or possibly brought in new neural receptors with it. And then, obviously they could wire that stuff together. They could certainly send you waves of energy that would either dumb you down. I can't remember now. Someone I was speaking with the other day, it probably was you, Nano Girl, talking about people would be limited in their intelligence. Somebody had to wear a thing behind their ear, and it would keep them from being smart. Was that you that I was talking to? I'm going way off into left field. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I doomed everyone and said that there's only going to be one group of people that gets to be human and gets to procreate, and the rest of it'll just be a whole bunch of levels of robots. Mm-hmm. I put that piece of doom into your show on Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, that was me.
I was thinking back to something that Alana Freeland was. I'm sorry. We have so many guests all the time. It's just they all.
It's because your show is that good, JD. That's what it is.
Well, and everything comes back to these topics for some reason. It all comes back to frequency and control. I mean, I don't know where you want to start in the universe, but it all seems to come back to frequency and control, does it not?
Let's take it back to Marty. You were going to chip in here too, man.
Yeah, just when you're talking about all the brain stuff and neurons and just really changing pathways for the use of drugs and for the use of technology, something that we cover a lot on the shows, the Freaky Fridays and stuff, but I do find it's fascinating. And just wanted to quickly read this again for any of the Freaky Friday listeners that didn't hear it earlier in the week. And it was from Extreme Tech. And it says, a compelling encore to inventing the internet appears more elusive for DARPA with each passing day. But what if they could put the internet into your brain? Well, that might turn some heads. Before anyone gets around to that, it would seem prudent to try and put just a single idea into our mind, a single memory, skill, or replay of some notable event. Well, with news released last week, DARPA intends to do just that with restoring active memory technology. So, I mean, that's just the tech side of it. They're really paving the way for rewiring us all, folks. Right there.
And I think that I still think that's what Google wants to do, that whole and the virtual reality, and why I refer to Google as Google World, because I think they would love it if they were, quote unquote, in our heads. I mean, they want, and not to mention the fact they want to chip us. You know, I was listening to another YouTube of Kurzweil, and he's like, this is the natural progression that we will merge with all of the technology physically. I thought, no, it's not the natural progression. It's yours, but it's not mine. But that's how he sees it. Go for it, Johnny.
I think Google probably will be in your head soon, Nano, because they've got that Windows, which is it's holographic now.
Wow.
When you're walking about with a pair of glasses and like it's like giant buttons that are on your wall for like Facebook, and your TV isn't there. It's actually, you think it's there. It's honestly, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about thinking it's there as well. That's something else that they're all working on, DARPA.
Yep.
The thought-based technology, the biometric integration with computers where you can just think something and it does it. It's just like, what? And this is the stuff that they're working on.
Well, does humanity itself become the supercomputer when they do biologically network us brain to brain? Something which is coming.
Well, they were... I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Nano.
Well, just to add, I mean, this kind of triggered something from Elena's show, right? That she said that was the main thing they wanted to do. And what I thought about was Babylon 5, where they had those spiders. They were humans that were the power for the spiders. I don't remember if you remember the bad guys. When you looked under the spiders, that's what those aliens looked like. There were humans that were attached to the spiders. And what she said was that they were going to use us, our energy, our source, to power them. That's what they were doing. So that's exactly what you guys are all talking about. Go for it, JD.
Well, I was just going to say, I was reading an article earlier tonight about this testing they're doing about, they called it teleporting, but what they were really doing is they were basically strapping people up with like, an EMG type machine so they could read their brain waves and read their body chemistry, and then putting them into a very immersive virtual reality system. So they're in a robot essentially, and then they were taking, say, the robot perception, and they were threatening it, and they were seeing how much the body reacted as if it was inside of that other being, and they found that it's almost 100%. It's like once you put yourself in there, there's no differentiation between the way you operate in your regular body and the spatial orientation that you have if you're in some sort of mobile avatar. And I thought that was really interesting. Not only the fact that they're studying it, but just the fact that that they're working towards that right now, and they're working on the human implications of what that would be like. Just really interesting to me.
Wow. I just want to check, like, none of us are like particle physicists or quantum physicists or anything on the panel tonight, are we? No, just checking, because some of the conversations we are having on here, guys, is absolutely unbelievable. And I wish it was probably conversations like this that they would have in our education system. Just let people use their imaginations and think outside the box. Always outside the box, because if it wasn't for people using their imagination, who only knows what cave we would still be living in. And guys, we've got another caller on the line, a regular caller to the network. Must apologise for leaving you hanging so long, but it's Kevin in Minnesota, and I tell you what, if there's one guy who can bring some woo to the table to take us out tonight, it is Kev. So welcome to the show, man.
Hey, welcome, man.
Thank you so much, crowd. It's awesome to hear you guys talking about the woo, and with just listening to you guys, it just extrapolates all over the place of where you can go. But what I wanted to bring up is about HARP. HARP, and when you guys were talking about the powers that shouldn't be and their escape plan, well, I believe one of the uses that HARP is to find underground tunnels. And they can use it by bouncing it off the ionosphere, just like when you, if you remember in Jurassic Park where they did the sound wave of the bullet exploding, and then it would make a wave through the ground, and they could tell that there were bones underneath. They were using it for archaeology and finding caves and stuff. But now HARP can do that in a large Earth and moon. Apparently they use it to check the moon for cavities in it too. So if the powers that shouldn't be know all the cavities in the Earth, that goes along with their mountains in Colorado and their cavities. So when the proverbial fan gets hit and we don't have a ticket to go to the moon base Alpha or Alternative 3, if you look up Alternative 3, that's where they talk about having a man-made base on the moon and on Mars.
Do you think there's much weight
then lastly,
that theory, Kev? Just alternative theory, alternative 3. This is something I've heard before, and I find it quite fascinating. Do you want to tell the listeners about alternative 3?
Well, allegedly, alternative 3 is that way back when they decided about the possibility of Earth's future and where we've gone as a population on this planet. They're like, okay, we've gone to the POR, the point of no return. And so they came up with 3 alternatives. And one alternative was just to let everything go the way it's going to be and then just, do without wilt and party like a rock star. The other one was to create deep underground military bases that we know of 107 of them in the United States alone. And then alternative 3 was to create a base on the moon and Mars. And allegedly they've done this. But with that being the case, and the powers that shouldn't be, how they're way into the bloodlines and stuff like that, and you guys were talking about Morgellons and chemtrails. Well, what is a virus? A virus is an unknown entity in your body, I'm paraphrasing, that's causing havoc. So you're basically describing not nano girl, but nanotechnology getting under the skin. And the simplest form that a nano robot can create is a link or a chain. So when they look at these Morgellons and they see these strong like string, I don't know if you gentlemen have witnessed those videos.
I've seen them. Yep.
Well, that there is the simplest robotic form, like Transformers. It's the simplest basic entity form that a robot can create, is to link them together and create a chain. And if it's microscopic, to us it's going to look like a hair. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, too, is you were talking about frequencies. So when you create a hair, or if you create a piece of metal that comes in a string form, it works as an antenna, or it also works as your nervous system. So if they bombard our bodies with all these little hairs that create these little antennas, so with their cell phone towers, when they create the frequency of docility or mind-numbingness or aggression or anger, then our bodies pick it up easier because we have billions of nanorobots that are tuning in and plaguing our bodies. So
that's a really, really, really good point. It connects so many dots when we talk about this stuff on such a level. Absolutely.
I mean, have you ever? I was going to just add to what you're saying is that have you ever looked at those horrible, scary towers with all the little antennas? You wonder if they ever really turn those on, what would that do to us? Because we probably already have. Go ahead. We already have all that in our bodies, right?
Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
right. I was in the Navy. I was a radioman, and in the Navy, I was antenna PO. I had to take care of the maintenance on antennas. and we have to climb up on the yard arms. And when we went up there, we had to go around the ship and say, hey, shut off all your stuff, your electromagnetic wave. Because when I got out of the military and you start looking into the whole radio wave propagation, why, when they picked the cell phone frequencies, why did they overlap our own brain's frequency? And I can't remember the exact amount, but the frequency that's used for cell phone overlaps the average human brain frequency.
You know, that makes it the perfect carrier signal for any kind of mind control, any kind of thought to be implanted. You know, the actual theories here could be endless. The Morgellons as well. This could all tie in, guys. JD, you've just joined us back. Your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, to me, it's a perfect example of this targeted people thing with this electronic manipulation. Man, I got to be honest. I felt personally in the past that I have been kind of messed with electronically in that way, where if they can mess around with your thought waves, you know, it may not be to the point where they can generate actual thoughts or put a projection where you're hearing a voice in your head, but could they make you really angry? Could they make you really sad? Could they make you want to go out and buy something, or you know what I mean? To me, that seems to be the goal. And we know, given all of the other frequency manipulation they've done, we've talked on the past, you know, about the 440 stuff, they're not going to leave any stone unturned. If they can manipulate you, they're going to manipulate you, don't you think?
Yeah, so I was wondering.
Absolutely, from every point.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking, when we're talking about Morgellons, you wonder why does everybody not get Morgellons?
Well, that's a good point,
is this
because
a
we're all
targeted
sprayed.
thing?
We certainly are all sprayed,
Yeah.
if that's how it comes. Nano Girl, you were wanting to jump in there after Whistles, and then Marty, I think.
Okay, just real quickly, Alana said a couple of things on your show on Tuesday, JD, that I thought kind of caught my ear, and I hadn't really put it together until our caller did. But she said we don't know what we're doing with these cell phones, and brain cancer is off the charts right now. And she was very concerned that all our young guys and gals, young kids, are using cell phones.
Yeah,
Well, I read an article this morning about, what was it? 7 out of 10 kids under the age of 1 using cell phones now, using some sort of smartphone technology. 7 out of 10 kids.
The parents are using them as babysitters at the malls.
And you think of that microwave kind of comes off that around that child's still forming mind. This is unbelievable, guys. Marty, you were wanting to chip in here as well, man. And a big thank you to Kevin from Minnesota. You've dropped now, but what a call, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome call.
Absolutely, yeah.
Always great topics when he calls in, points and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they can deny this whole cell phone radiation thing anymore. We had scores of police officers over here in the UK that were getting all kinds of cancers and stuff, and it turned out that there was a connection with the new digital radios that they use. I don't think they use those yet over in the States. They're still back on the ones you can tune in on a scanner and stuff, but it's more like a mobile phone signal over here. And there was a collective of police officers actually saying that they wanted the old tech back because of this. And then if you look at your iPhone and stuff, if you go into the About section in the settings, there's actually RF exposure warnings that say you should always have the phone so many centimeters away from your skin, your face at all times because of radiation and damage and stuff. Just go and read the small print within your own smartphone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, they're not telling us how much brain cancer there is, but you go sit over there at MD Anderson or one of the other 2 hospitals. Those buildings are off the charts, and they are stuffed full of people. It's all brain cancer.
Absolutely fantastic, guys. But unfortunately, we are out of something we've been talking about a lot tonight. Time. It's caught up on us. Marty, you're a good one, man.
Yeah, it's been fascinating, guys. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for hanging in the chat room. It's been great.
And JD, a pleasure, sir, as always.
Always a pleasure hanging out with you guys and getting the good decompression on a Friday night.
Definitely. Alex, all the way from Ukraine, an absolute honour to have you on with the